Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Bebe Moore Campbell was a writer and novelist with a special touch for addressing race and social issues. She contributed commentaries to Morning Edition at NPR for several years. Bebe Moore Campbell died today from complications of brain cancer. She was 56. As a commentator, Campbell was outspoken on behalf of people she saw as shortchanged by life, battered spouses, bullied children, and people with mental illness.
Stigma is one of the main reasons why people with mental health problems don't seek treatment or take their medications. People of color, particularly African Americans, feel the stigma more keenly. In a race-conscious society, some don't want to be perceived as having yet another deficit.
Campbell was also unafraid of exposing her own weaknesses. Once, after rolling blackouts in California, she shared one of her paralyzing fears: elevators.
I've been climbing stairs, lots of them. Tina Turner, girl, you better move over. Haynes, send me the contract. My legs are in great shape. My mind, now that's another story. I am what I call elevator challenged. I have claustrophobia that results in panic whenever I'm in a small enclosed space.
Bebe Moore Campbell was the author of several best-selling books that explored issues of race from several vantage points, including Brothers and Sisters, Singing in the Comeback Choir, and Your Blues Ain't Like Mine. Her latest book, 72-Hour Hold, looked at the stigma of mental illness in the black community and closer to home. Marita Golden joins us now. She was a friend of Bebe Moore Campbell's, and she's also a fellow novelist. Thanks so much for speaking with us.
I'm glad to be here to remember a really, really wonderful writer and a classy lady.
You know, she was a journalist for many years before she became an author. How did that inform her work, both the stories she told and the way she told them?
Well, I think her background as a journalist equipped her to really feel that no story was off limits. But I think as much as her journalism training was important, Bebe was also, like me, a writer who came of age in the 60s. And coming of age at that time with the political turmoil, with the redefinition of women, redefinition of minorities, she really saw writing as a way to change the world one reader at a time.
As we said, she explored race from different vantage points, you know, how different people of different races would view a single incident. Was she trying to help people on both sides of a racial divide see and understand each other?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. And I remember when her book Brothers and Sisters came out, the book about the Los Angeles riot. It was so compassionate in the way it sort of circled that whole story and looked at it from a number of different points of view, a number of different vantage points that really, while entertaining the reader, challenged the reader to think twice, to think thrice, to think many times about what they thought they knew about white people, about black people, and really understand that we really are brothers and sisters.
Rita, how was she regarded by other writers?
She was regarded as a very important writer. She was regarded as an important writer because of the topics that she took on. She was regarded as important because she was a good writer, and she was just so productive. I mean, she had a work ethic, you know, that was just amazing. The thing that I remember about Bebe was that she was very, very successful, the New York Times bestseller list, but she also wrote from the heart. She wrote with a sense of mission, and I worked with her on a project called Wild Women Don't Wear No Blues, where she wrote a piece about black men and white women, which had some wickedly funny jokes. So she was classy, she was smart, she was savvy, but she did have a really wicked sense of humor.
She could make you laugh and cry in the same paragraph.
Yeah.
Well, Marita, thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing your memories of your friend.
Thank you, Michelle.
That was the novelist Marita Golden. She was speaking to us about Bebe Moore Campbell, the writer who died in Los Angeles today at the age of 56.
The Cows, Justice, Gus T Renegade. In for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of Racism. Today's date, Sunday, July 28th, 2013, so I have been told. Moment for Bebe Campbell, author, journalist. Again, the cows. We will be back tomorrow. We will be back, matter of fact, let's see, we will be back in about 16 hours. Actually, I think it's a little more than that, 18 hours, about 18 hours we'll be back. We have a guest joining us live from the area of the world known as South Africa. Once again, racist suspect, white female, Jillian Shute. She is a filmmaker. She's also married to a black male. They do films about racism in the area of the world known as South Africa. She got in touch with me yesterday. Could have been an act of racism right there because I had spoken with her at the beginning of the month and pitched several dates for the program, and 3 of the 4 dates that I suggested expired before she even replied, and she replied yesterday evening. So very short turnaround, just not, in my view, not very professional, but we will be ready to roll. It will be earlier than normal because of the time difference, so it should be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Pacific, way out of our normal broadcast time, but hopefully will be constructive. Always enjoy talking about racism from a global perspective to help us get a better understanding of what racism is all about and how it operates worldwide. So tune in tomorrow, racist suspect Jillian Shute. Our guest for today's program, recommended by a listener, investor in the cows. She has been a big fan of our guest's work for some time and thought it would be constructive to have her on the program. She has written a book, 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule, which deals pretty candidly with racism. It is taking together different stories. Matter of fact, we'll read her bio. Our guest, she is a writer, producer who has spent 16 years in television, post-production, and programming development, and is often the only one. In 2004, she decided to chronicle the countless stories she and her friends shared about their white coworkers into a fictional diary, the aforementioned 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule, the diary of a nigger, Negro, colored, black, African-American woman. She has written other projects, theatrical plays, and a new middle grade book series, Miles and Zoe. You can see the web series that was inspired by her debut publication, An Unwritten Rule. It is on their website, the unwrittenruleseries.com. You can check it out. Should be available. The address again, www.theunwrittenruleseries.com. We'll post it on the Facebook page so folks can check it out. The material should be on YouTube as well. If you get lost, confused, having any difficulties tracking it down, you can just go to YouTube and enter the search Unwritten Rules, and it should pop up. They're on their 2nd season right now, and I think they post a new episode every month, so you can just go to the website or you can go to the YouTube page, and they should have lots of information, behind-the-scenes footage, all kinds of great information, so you can check it out and support her material. Our guest joining us live from California, pleasure to have her on the broadcast, Miss Kim Williams. Miss Williams, are you with us?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing some of your Sunday afternoon. I know you're super busy doing out there working and getting things done. We appreciate you sharing a bit of your time with us. For listeners who this might be their first time hearing from you, first time hearing about your fantastic work, anything that you think folks should know about you before we get started?
No, I mean, I think my work kind of speaks for itself. I think that everyone should, take a look at the web series, The Unwritten Rules on YouTube, and that is pretty much, it's based on the book that I wrote, 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule, back in 2004, but it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. The address again, you can go to the website www.theunwrittenrulesseries.com. Give it out a few more times before the program wraps up. Obviously, you are a black female, correct?
Yes, I
am. You write about racism in your book, and the series, which is based on your book, also deals quite a bit with racism. What do you mean when you use the term racism?
Well, I think the book and the series is more about perceptions, which I always say are the side effects of racism. So I think that even though, we have advanced in racism, racism still exists, of course, but I think that the after effects are perceptions, just how we perceive each other to be based on, racism.
I'm going to make sure I understood you clearly. Are you saying when you use the term racism, what you mean is how we, meaning people, how we perceive each other? Could you give it to me one more time just so I make sure I'm understanding you clearly?
Yeah, I think that, everyone, look at racism. I think the problem that continues are perceptions. And I like I said, I think that these are kind of side effects of racism. So it's like we have advanced in certain ways, but the perceptions are still there, and no one has kind of talked about these perceptions. And that's what the book and the web series deals with, just how, we think each other, we are based on racism. Does that make sense?
I'm still a little confused because you were saying that these perceptions are the product of racism. So to me, that's still not really clearly articulating what you mean when you say racism or what you think racism means.
I think racism is just, prejudice or perceiving kind of different things because of someone's race, or and I think that what we don't talk about are the perceptions, which are a product of racism.
Okay. Do you think it's possible for black people to practice racism against white people?
I think that black people can be prejudiced against white people. I don't think that black people can practice racism, because I think racism, the result of racism is really kind of, having the power to, affect certain things because of race. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Based on your understanding, do you think right now that currently the only group that has the power to practice racism, what you just said in terms of being able to make an impact based on race, whatever they perceive race to be, do you think right now the only group that has the power to practice racism would be white people?
It depends on where you are, I guess. I think it's the majority, and whatever that majority is. But because the majority actually dictates or have the power to do anything, to kind of make a difference. So if the majority here in the U.S., the majority, well, it's funny because the majority isn't white people, but as far as the power, it's white people. In other parts of the world, it could be, it depends on where you are. So I think it's the majority.
Okay. I would tell folks, again, 18 hours. We will have a racist suspect tuning in from South Africa. White people are definitely not the majority in that part of the world, and it seems like they still have a problem with racism, white people practicing racism against
but they're not the majority, but they have the power.
Right.
They hold the power. So I think it depends on who holds the power, and a lot of times it's the majority, or what is perceived to be the majority, I guess.
I know. With the book, this was published in 2004, 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule. The subtitle with the book, can you kind of explain what went into the thinking with the title and what you were trying to accomplish with that?
Yeah, I after working in different, because I've always worked in entertainment and moved from job to job or project to project. And I kind of felt that, and going back to these perceptions, it's one of those things when, a white person, when I first met a white person, they had these perceptions. And then after they got to know me, other perceptions started. And so I came up with the title because I felt that, when they were first introduced to me, they looked at me as a nigger, or what those perceptions that are attached to being a nigger, and you kind of advance, if you will, to Negro, colored, Black, African American. And so that's why I chose to use that title, and I also chose to attach the titles with the different stages of baby, childhood, adolescent, adulthood. Because it was kind of like a growth, if you will.
Okay. I wanted to read a little bit from the book. This is actually at the very beginning, which I think is important, so listeners will be on the same page with kind of the foundation of where you start off in the book. I wanted to read a couple pages and then get you to share your thoughts on what you were writing here. This is from very beginning, page 2, Birth of a Nigger. Dear Diary, have you ever seen a baby so ugly that for a brief second you allow yourself to feel sorry for the union that conspired to produce its adverse little life? Who could create such a thing? Was it lust, love, jealousy, revenge? You begin to wonder if something so unattractive will ever get a fair chance to blossom into a flower worth picking. How many times will he be teased and criticized in our narcissistic society for nothing more than his existence? Will he ever be able to cover his unappealing features with a foundation of acceptance? Will he be rejected because of the unforgettable impression that he will leave on others? Can he experience unconditional love by someone other than his own ugly kind and reproduce another generation? And will that one be as ugly as the last? Will he ever reawaken into an acceptable existence that society wouldn't perceive as being as ugly as the first? Then again, Mama never believed in reincarnation. She feels that when you die, you're dead. That's it. You either go to heaven or hell. No in between. No coming back as a bird or a tree. No second chances. Just heaven or hell. So naturally, I grew up believing the same thing. I guess we really have no choice. From birth, we usually just develop the same beliefs and habits as our parents, since it's from them that we learn how to live. We don't second guess our embedded points of view and challenge everything that we once thought of as truth until we start observing original thoughts and unfamiliar ways of life later. Do you believe in reincarnation? If you would have asked me that question a few years ago, my answer would have been no. And if you asked me why, I would have answered because my mama said so. But if you ask me today, I will say I'm living proof. From what I was told, there wasn't a dark cloud in the sky from the day of my first birth. It was a clear, bright, sunny afternoon with great opportunity for anything to happen. That's why Mama used to call me her little racy rainbow. I don't know why she even bothered to name me Racy Nisha. No one has ever called me by that awful ethnic name, thank God. You see, in the days leading up to my first arrival, there was a terrible storm that carried nonstop hard rain and breezy winds, and then there was me, an unlimited spectrum of beauty, innocence, serenity, and possibility. Mama always believed that I didn't have an excruciating entrance because God was making up for the disastrous storm he created days before. But some births are filled with unexpected complications and unbearable pain that even an epidural can't cure. I guess you can say my second birth was somewhat like that. Although it seems like a lifetime ago, it has only been 4 years. The morning that I was delivered onto the pale conservative campus of my new environment, the city was filled with low clouds and dark skies, and the upcoming storm had no plans to welcome any past promises that I represented. It was hard to comprehend because the previous summer afternoon had been shining with anticipation of a new start. But I guess some things are just unpredictable. I always knew I didn't want to go to a black college. I had been around black people all my life. Growing up, I had no white neighbors and I had only 2 white classmates. What were their names? Oh, Sarah and Tina. Yeah, and no one ever really thought of them as being white. They were just really, really light version of us. But when it came to real white people, I remember I always used to hear, watch them. They don't care about nobody but themselves. They need Jesus. You can't trust them. It's just a matter of time before they show their true colors. They think they're better than us. Knowing what I know now, I can't believe that I actually accepted these slanted beliefs all those years. But before I went away to college, everything that I had perceived the majority to be was based on what I thought was my family's factual opinions. I never even thought to question them because I didn't think it was possible for Mama to ever be wrong. Even though she was wrong about carrots. I ate carrots all those years thinking they were giving me good vision. I even had carrot cake for my birthday every year. And then at 13, it happened. Carrots proved Mama wrong. I needed glasses. I haven't eaten a carrot since. At the beginning of my freshman year, I fought to ignore my family and prove them wrong. My positive attitude overshadowed all of the uncomfortable feelings of being the only one. I answered the silly questions and tolerated the constant stares. I was willing to do whatever it took to earn my place in the real world. Unsurprisingly, it didn't take long for me to begin to foster my new extended family's dreams and adopt their acceptable habits. And yet, there were still those who didn't welcome me into the family. Instead of supporting and focusing on my growth, they concentrated on conceiving yet another birth for the campus to raise. You see, my new relatives were the types who depended on aid from society and used past government checks as a reason to continue producing ugly babies. I know you've seen at least one of them. Boy, girl, nigger. Yeah, like I said earlier, some are pretty repulsive. For them to have seen me as anything more than an ugly baby the moment I met them would have taken a drug that appears to be impossible to manufacture. So some people keep doing it their natural way, giving birth to ugly babies regardless of the difficult process that follows and the lasting pain that lingers. Again, this is from 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule. Our guest, Ms. Kim Williams. This is at the very beginning of the book. So what were you trying to do in setting the reader up for what was going to come in this book?
I was really trying to set up the whole concept of, the birth that happened every time, I was introduced into a white workplace. And the first chapter talks about me going off to college, and that was the first time that I was even, around white people. So that's what the first chapter is about, them meeting me and kind of having starting from that nigger birth and the perceptions that come with those, with that. So that's what I was trying to convey.
Okay. When you talk about, you said you always knew that you didn't want to go to a black college because you'd always been around black people. Was that something that you talked about when you were, I guess, in high school or kind of getting close to the age of when you were going to be going off to college?
No, not really. I just knew, I knew that I wanted to work in entertainment, and I didn't know any white people, growing up. And so I made a choice to go to a diverse college so I could, have that experience. Unfortunately, I chose the whitest, I chose like a private university, which was an extreme, the extreme case, which I later transferred and kind of found a middle ground. So,
the portion where you talk about your new relatives, are you talking about when you went to college, your white students or white classmates when you went off to school?
Exactly. And the book is, even when I'm introduced into the workplace, I kind of use the family connection because that's, family is what everyone kind of relates to, and you spend really, well, for me, I was spending 12 hours with these, with my coworkers at work, or for anyone else, you spend 8 hours a day. So it is, that sense of a family where you're just hanging out with these people on a daily basis. So I decided to use that connection for that reason.
Okay. When you say the sentence right here, my new relatives were the types who depended on aid from society and used past government checks as a reason to continue producing ugly babies. What is that reference specifically?
It's just referencing, even though, when they're first introduced to a black person, they, have those perceptions that are attached with that ugly baby, even though, and because of our history, the history of this country, basically. So that's what that sentence is referencing. It's,
You talk about, oh, I'm sorry, did you have more?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You talk about, this is still from your college experience, Karen Hoffman was one of the reference points. I think she was your roommate, and you were talking about, I guess, some of the challenges, this being kind of your first time having this kind of intense exposure to white people and some of the conflicts, I guess, that you all had. Can you share some of the issues that you had?
Yeah, and the book, by the way, is fiction, but it's based on personal experience, but, it is fiction. But, when I was, my first day, actually, at college, I had arrived, and me and my roommate, who was white from a suburbs of Chicago, I was the first black person she had met. And we went to the grocery store, and the way our college sat in between, on one side of the campus was a black neighborhood, and on the other side of the campus was, a wealthy white neighborhood. And for both of us, we had just gotten to the college. It was our first day there, and we decided to go to the grocery store. So we just happened to go to the store on the black side because we didn't know, And we walk into the store, and she sees black people, and she starts running because she was scared. And at first, I didn't know why she was running, so I'm running after her. Like, what's wrong? Who's chasing us? And finally, I caught up to her, and I stopped her. I was like, okay, why are we running? And she's like, they're going to get me. I'm like, who's going to get you? Them, the black people. And I was like, well, I'm black. And she's like, yeah, but, you're different. You're in college. You're not like them. And at that moment, that was my first kind of college experience. And at that moment, I realized I just didn't, because even though I had never, hung out with a white person, I just didn't have those extreme perceptions of white people. That was her attitude, the whole year. Even though, we roomed together that whole year, she, didn't really change her perceptions or her views of black people, because I was an exception because I was in college, and getting to know her family and her background, I kind of, at first I didn't understand, but I kind of understood her, because this is what she was taught. Like, this is what her father had taught her. So it, this is what she grew up believing,
Do you think, Karen Hoffman, do you think she was racist?
Yes, I would say that she was racist.
You talk about how challenging it was, dealing with this. And as you said, her having these racist views of black people, and you're an honor student at school, and she still thinks black people are violent and poor students, intellectually inferior. You said that this experience, you pondered accepting some of the beliefs of Minister Louis Farrakhan. What beliefs of Minister Farrakhan did you ponder accepting?
It was funny, because the year that I was in college, Malcolm X came out, and it was, me and another friend of mine, because we were kind of experiencing the same issues on a daily basis. And I use that sentence because I was, I guess I was thinking about, like the extreme, like becoming a Muslim and like having, just I was in a place where I was understanding, actually, the views, and kind of, thinking about becoming a Muslim, but yeah.
Wow, fascinating. See, did you write about, or you talk about some of your family members and their view on white people, their view on racism? This is on page 6 of the book. You said that my crazy family, however, believes that your game theory could be proven in a perfect world, but since that doesn't exist, my progressive philosophy, a phrase coined by Uncle Sonny, is just a bunch of wishful thinking. And you kind of give some of your family's viewpoints on white people, racism, how things operate in the world. You go on to write, yep, that's my optimistic family. I wouldn't say that they're prejudiced or anything. Well, not all of them anyway. I just don't know about Uncle Sonny. I've witnessed some of his prejudiced tendencies, but I think most of them are just a little overly cautious. So in an ironic way, I guess there are perceptions on both sides, huh? With your family, is it that they are skeptical that white people could be out to harm them and or practice racism?
No, I mean, like for example, that part is fiction, but in a way, it's not. It's based on real life, as far as I think, all black people, and I grew up in Texas. You have certain views of white people, just like white people have views of black people. And so I think that's what I was trying to kind of convey there, that, just like, there are people, black people, who don't trust white people. There's black people who think that, all white people, are one way. So that's what I was trying to kind of point out. But, like, that part is part of fiction.
Okay. Do you think, given the history, given the global history of the interaction between white people and non-white people, do you think it's logical that black people would have some suspicions and skepticism of white people?
Of course. Okay. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they? And I still think today, black people, because that's how we're kind of taught, to. As far as, again, growing up in the South, that's how, you're taught. So, yes, it's very logical, I think.
Okay. I don't know if this is fiction or not. You said you'd witnessed some of Uncle Sonny's prejudice tendencies. What were some of those prejudice tendencies?
That part is fiction.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool in the gang.
And prejudice tendencies, it was just a way to kind of, say, as far as, there's, you have that black family member who's like, oh, you can't trust white people. You have these views, and that's what that was. So.
Okay. Right on. Again, our guest, Kim Williams, author, 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule, the book and the web series. Check out both of them. You use this metaphor continues from the very beginning all the way through when you get to the end, the metaphor of white people not seeing you as an equal, both, I guess, your collegiate experience as well as on the job, seeing you as lesser, even as a child. Like, can you get like some specifics with regards to when you started to think, hey, they really are treating me, talking to me, conducting themselves with me as though I'm a child?
Well, I think that it's I went to college, graduated from college, and you think you kind of have it, well, I thought that I kind of had it nailed because, I had been around white people and I was kind of ready, to tackle the world. And, I entered into the workplace, my first job, and it was kind of the same thing that I had experienced in college, and then you go to another job, and it's the same thing that, and so you start to kind of see this cycle of having to kind of prove yourself, in a sense, having to try and prove that you kind of belong there, or you are equal, So that's why I, use the whole analogy throughout the book, because I think that as black people, we've all kind of gone through it. So.
Amen. And this, in my view, it has a big impact on how we see ourselves, because when you're constantly doubted and treated as though you're not smart, you're not capable of doing anything constructive, you can begin to believe that and think that, hey, maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I am defective somehow. You wrote on page 9, I appreciated the candor. You wrote on page 9 that I remember I used to hate my pretty hazel eyes and dusty sandy hair. Growing up, it seemed that everything about me, from my red caramel skin to the little brown freckles on my pointy nose, was a mistake, even though people were always telling me how they loved how everything complemented my unique red shade. But instead of seeing it as a positive thing, I gazed at the thoughts. What's wrong with me? Why did God make me this way? How can I change to be like everybody else? I don't remember exactly when it happened, but one morning I looked in the mirror and I didn't mind staring my differences in the face. I no longer wished for Snow White's perfect beauty or a black Nubian queen's distinctive features. I just wanted to be me, my different-looking self. I wonder what's taking society so long to wake up to its morning of acceptance. But how do we really expect those memorable names to just disappear with the other scary nightmares that we can't remember once we're awake? It's just not that easy. I'm not for holding grudges, because if that were the case, I would be sitting at home with Cousin Ray Ray justifying why I'm playing some illegal shit. Maybe we just need to really think about this. we still have negative opinions about white people's differences. So how can we expect them to not have negative perceptions about ours? Do you remember like some of the things that kind of helped you become more comfortable and getting out of that mindset of thinking that, you know, there was something about you that was defective?
You know, I think that, I mean, that's what the book is about. It's about, you know, a journey, and the journey of finally, because the whole thing is, you know, the journey of embracing your difference. And, you know, at the end of the book, she finally embraces her difference. And so I think that that's what, you know, for me, when I was writing the book or decided to write the book, that was the moment that, you know, I had finally embraced it and gotten to the point where, you know, this is me, I accept me, and whoever, you know, doesn't, just, it's, oh well, you know. But yeah, that I think for everybody is different. But for me, I decided to chronicle my journey in the book. But it was definitely a journey, because it is, you know, at first you're wanting to conform, and you're trying to do everything to fit in, and you're doing the, you know, all of this stuff, and you're finding that you're still not fitting, you know, you're still not fitting in 100%. And so you just get tired, and you're like, okay, it's time to stop trying to fit in and just embrace who you are.
Shay, I thought this was really important. You wrote that you had wanted to pursue writing and journalism from a young age, but an incident your freshman year, you had a white professor who criticized you, and it kind of crushed that ambition for a little while. Can you tell us more about that incident? Yeah,
you know, I was always a writer, and I had never wanted to be anything but a writer. And I went to, you know, the white college freshman year, and the funny thing, it wasn't even an English professor. It was an art history professor. And I wrote a paper, and she told me I was a horrible writer, and because at the time I was pursuing radio, TV, film, and journalism, and she was like, you know, you shouldn't, because you're a horrible writer. And it just really kind of crushed me, because again, with me coming from, you know, an all-black environment, and me thinking that, you know, because she was white, she knew, you know, it was truth, I guess. And I really kind of switched my you know, I changed my journalism major to, like, my journalism minor to PR. And I just kind of accepted that I was a horrible writer. And even though, you know, I spent years wanting to write, but I was like, oh, I can't write because, you know, this woman told me I couldn't write. And the funny thing is, I don't even remember her name. That's how, you know, like, I don't remember anything about it. But this book was actually the first thing that I wrote, you know, coming since college. It was like my first attempt at writing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I am certain there are thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of black people out there who can relate. Just having that one white professor, even in Malcolm X, where the white teacher, he tells him he wanted to be a lawyer. He's like, oh, no, you're a nigger. You couldn't possibly.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why that's why I wanted to write the book, because it was like, you know, you listen to people and you kind of accept what they put on you. You know, and when you sit back and think about it, you don't even know why you're accepting it. You're just accepting it, you know. And so I really wanted to write something that was honest and, came from a place of truth and not make any apologies about it, because a lot of times, us as Black people, we apologize for our feelings and our thoughts, and it's like, no, this is how I feel, so I'm going to put it out there. And, that's how the book was born.
40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule. Kimberly Williams, our guest on the Cows today. You write going into the job, and I want to get into some of the different anecdotes that you share from the workplace, because I think a lot of people can relate to those as well. But you write going in that, and I think this is important because we just talked about this yesterday, and I was stressing, one of our callers was saying, you can't go on a job and be the rowdy, angry Black person that you reference in the book. And I was saying that I think for most Black people, that's not the case. I don't think most Black people go on their job thinking, I'm going to bust out all of my Malcolm X memorized speeches and let them know that they're not anything. And Louis Farrakhan, I don't think most Black people do that. I think most Black people just are there and they're trying to fit in and do well on the job.
But again, it goes back to the perceptions, because the thing is, anytime you disagree, as a Black person, then it's the perception, oh, you're the angry Black person. Even if you're, even if you're not raising your voice, even if, it's one of those things. So it's not us being angry, it's that it goes back to the perception.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. 2,000%. But I think that is a very important distinction with regards to if you are just there and you are not being loud, you're not being combative, you're not talking about racism, you're just there trying to do your job to the best of your ability. And other white people, perhaps being racist, are saying or attributing things to you that are not there, that you're angry or combative or hostile. And I think that's very different. In fact, you write in the book, because I thought this was way to set the table. You said that, this is talking about when you're about to start this new job. And you said that, I went, again with the child metaphor, I went by myself and something about it was just as frightening as the first time. Somehow I couldn't remember the motivational speech that I wrote last night. I could only recall another first time 4 years ago. Even though I had chosen change over comfort, I was scared to death of the challenges that change would give me. And no matter how many honors classes I excelled in or how much discipline it took to finish a 4-year program in 3, I still felt that I was just an infant in their adult world. But I thought it would be different today because I had proven my growth in their fantasy world. Why is it so hard for them to accept us for nothing less than them? I traded layaway for gap. I expanded my vocabulary. I even started watching Friends, thinking I could relate to them better. But it never seems to be enough. Today, I was asking myself the same questions that I did on my first day of college. Why am I here? Am I only here because I'm Black? What do they think of me? How can I fit into their world? What is it going to take for me to be comfortable? Are Ray Ray and them right? Was this fictional, or is this a serious conversation that you had before starting?
It was pretty, yeah. It was serious. I mean, it was a real conversation.
Wow.
It was a real conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know tons of listeners can relate to that as well. Completing a 4-year degree in 3 years, that would seem to suggest a stellar academic student, but still having those doubts. Am I going to measure up to these white people? Are they going to treat me like I'm a competent employee who can contribute a lot to their company? I think tons, even President Obama, I think, still dealing with that in the White House.
Yeah.
With question number 6, are Ray Ray and them right? Did you have an answer?
Interesting. I don't know. I think it depends on, I really think that it depends on the person. And I think that, I think on both sides we have to get to a point where we're not judging people on, these stereotypes, and we're judging, we're looking at individual people, because in some cases, Ray them have, they have been right, depending on certain people that I've dealt with. And other times they haven't been right. So it depends on the person or who you're dealing with.
I'll make sure I'm catching up our listeners who might not have read the book. Cousin Ray, one of his views presented, I assume he's talking about black people, just need to play our own damn games instead of always trying to learn their single complex one. I think Uncle Sonny's viewpoint is similar. Uncle Sonny saying that there is a bigger conspiracy to keep us, black people, from even trying out. I think those were the views, the more skeptical views of white people. I think that.
Okay. I thought you were just talking about the overall statement, like, you can't trust them, you can't, like that statement. But, okay. But no, in regards to us trying to learn to play our game, I think that we should, but we haven't thus far. I don't know the answer of what that will, take.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, our guest, Ms. Kim Williams. So, on the job, making an effort to fit in, and not like you were going in with a red, black, and green flag and army fatigues on, just going in trying to contribute and be a productive member of your new team. What, if you can recall, what were some of the first incidents where you know?
Oops, sorry.
Right on. We'll live. What were some of the first incidents, if you can recall, where you thought, oh, wow, I think they might be mistreating me because I'm a black person?
I think not in all. I wouldn't say that I've been, in a sense, mistreated at work. It's just, that knowing or kind of feeling that you're different. You know what I mean? And on some jobs I have been, mistreated, but not on all jobs. So it depends on the person and the situation. But I think for the book standpoint, it's that feeling that, again, you're different, and that you can't participate in conversations about the shampoo or what shampoo you use, or you know what I mean? It's just simple things like that. So it's not, I don't think, always about, direct prejudice or racism. It's just you feeling different. And you not fitting in because you're different. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because I think you talk pretty consistently in the book about wanting to fit in and that difficulty, feeling like you were making an effort, like sincerely trying to fit in with your white coworkers, and it falling short. In fact, this is on page 45. You said, so why do I want to be like them anyway? I would have to give up so much of me to think like them, and I'm not sure if it's worth it anymore. I thought that was pretty revealing, few lines as well. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's one of those things you're trying, and it goes back to, even in high school, you try to fit in and you try and to do these things, but it's like, why? Why can't you just kind of accept who you are? And that was really part of, again, my journey of learning to just embrace and accept who I am. And not really trying to force myself to understand, to kind of fit into their world the way they fit in, just trying to create my own place or space, you know.
Wow. You had an incident that I thought was, and this was written in 2004, so I'm very curious to see how things might have evolved over time. You, I guess, went out on a lunch date with I won't say date. You had lunch with one of your coworkers. I'll say it that way. You went out for lunch with one of your white coworkers, Matt from marketing. And this is on page 74. I'll read a little bit and then you can elaborate. Where Matt was trying to relate to you, trying to welcome you. And he says that we're in the same boat. You said, "What do you mean by same boat?" I asked. I'm gay. You're black. We all experience the same type of shit. And lunch was going so well. The two are not really the same, I said. What? I experience the same prejudices that you do because I'm gay. I can't get certain jobs and I get the stares. My parents have even disowned me. I know you know what it's like. For what? For my parents to disown me because I'm black? No, actually, I don't have a clue. I just wanted to have a quiet lunch with a coworker, but that's beginning to look impossible. Should I or shouldn't I? That's the question. Okay, I have no other choice. I'm not sure I'm following you. Are you saying that our prejudices are the same? I asked. And you're saying they aren't, he answered. Hell yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. They can't even compare. First of all, I can't hide the fact that I'm black. You can hide your sexuality, and I don't have any other choice but to be black. But you can decide tomorrow to pretend to be straight and wave bye-bye to all the prejudice. Wait, I don't choose to be gay. I am because those were the cards that I was dealt, he explained. I will stop there. How did this lunch conclude?
Actually, that is fiction. There was no Matt, but I felt that I wanted to put that story in there because it, at the time, was important to me, and so that's why I put it in. But that was part of the fiction, part of the book.
Given all of the successes of the gay rights movement of late, winning gay marriage in California where you are, and Washington State as well. It's just been a regular little juggernaut. Have your views changed? Are they consistent with what you wrote in 2004?
It's funny because, when I went back and reread when I was doing the web series, I had to go back and reread the book. And that was one of the things where it has kind of changed because I think, I don't know that we can kind of put dibs on discrimination. I think that for me, as a black person, black racism is more important to me than it is, say, for a gay person. But then I cannot kind of devalue discrimination against gay people either. Does that make sense? Or I can't say, discrimination against black people is higher than discrimination against the Jews, or discrimination. I think it affects me, so I have a deeper connection to it. But I can't really kind of rate discrimination. I feel now I'm not, I don't want to do that. But again, racism is real to me because I'm a black woman. But it's not for me, or it doesn't benefit me to say my racism or my discrimination is worse than your discrimination. Like, that's not even, for me, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
I know this topic, very popular since 2004, consistently comes up. In fact, there's a new documentary about to come out called The New Black, talking about homosexuals being mistreated. I guess one point or 2 points that I make in this conversation. I'm not aware of it being a matter of documented fact that gay people were not allowed to drink from certain water fountains or to get employment or housing or attend schools. I'm not aware that they ever had signs anywhere on the planet, to my knowledge, that said no gays can come here as standard practice. I think that has been standard practice for black people in many, many, many parts of the world, not just here. And the other thing that I point out with the so-called gay rights, many of these individuals who are gay and white, who are saying that they are being mistreated, these individuals frequently are not being mistreated by other black people. They're being mistreated by other white people. And these individuals who are white and gay can also be racist. These could be some of the very same people when we have to talk about the problems black people face as a result of racism. Some of these individuals are white and gay who are causing these problems. Those are just two of the major concerns that I have when people make that comparison between the two, which I do not think is accurate at all. I think it confuses exactly the power and the problem, the magnitude of the global problem of racism as a total system. I do not, and I have never seen any evidence that there is a system in place to abuse individuals who are gay in all areas of people activity. I don't see any evidence of that at all.
Well, I think racism is about race, and it's only about race. So it's like someone can't be racist towards a gay person, So those are two different terms, in my opinion. But, it's one of those things that where I'm at right, now, I just don't want to say, oh, well, black racism, black people have had it harder than Jews. And, because it really doesn't matter. Discrimination is discrimination, and it's all wrong. So I don't feel comfortable anymore kind of saying, my discrimination overrides your discrimination, or, because it really, at the end of the day, to me, it's all discrimination. It doesn't matter. It's all discrimination.
Again, our guest, Kimberly Williams, author of 40 Hours and an Unwritten Rule. Check for the book and the web series. The website again, www.theunwrittenrulesseries.com. theunwrittenrulesseries.com. We do have some folks that dialed in. If you have questions for Miss Williams, the number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. Number one more time, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to ask a question. Before I hit the phone lines, one of the other vignettes, because you had said pretty consistently that feeling of wanting to fit in, be accepted, and not wanting to be perceived as the angry black person. And this pops up in several of the different incidents that you share in the book. One of the vignettes you talk about, and this is one of the episodes in season 1 of the web series, where you go out for going out to lunch with some of your coworkers, and time comes for the bill. And there is a disparity with regards to what you ate and what you should be paying for the meager amount that you ordered, as opposed to what they got. And when it comes time to put our money in, and you're saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't get $20 worth of a lunch here. I only spent about $7. I don't think that I should have to, compensate. And that being one of those moments of, if I say something, if I don't go along with what they're saying, I'm an angry black person. Can you talk about the difficulties in navigating those types of situations?
Yeah, I think, at the first time it happened to me, I just did it because I didn't want to be angry. But then you get to a place, again, where you're growing and you're on this journey where you're like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not putting it, like, like, no, I didn't eat this. And you get to the point where you're like, you know what? If I'm going to be angry, I just have to be angry, And so it's one of those cases where it's like, you're really kind of standing up for yourself, and what you believe in.
Wow, you said this, I guess, happened more than once. You said the first time that you just went ahead and paid the extra, even though you didn't want to, just because you didn't want to be perceived as, being the angry black person?
Yeah, I think it has happened to me numerous times on different jobs and different, being out with white friends and, so, yeah.
Wow. Do you feel more comfortable now that that's happened? Do you feel like if it's happened tomorrow? Yeah. Okay.
But when you're new and you're trying to fit in, you're like, okay, well, this is what everyone else is doing, so I guess maybe I have to do it. And then you start thinking about it, and you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this?
I totally agree. What suggestions, I guess, would you give for folks who might be either dealing with that same problem and they haven't had the courage to say, no, I'm not going to, pay or give money when I didn't eat that much, how they can handle those sort of situations with some tact so it doesn't come off that you're trying to bite anyone's head off, but at the same time, you're going to stand up for yourself and not just, allow them to walk all over you?
I think that you really have to get to a place, again, where you're just going to embrace whatever consequence, that you don't really care anymore about their perceptions or what they're going to think of you. And you have to be comfortable with it's about being comfortable with who you are and not really caring what other people think. And I think that for some people that takes longer than others.
Were there ever any negative ramifications when you have stood up for yourself and I'm not going to pay for you all's lunch?
Oh, yeah, of course. That was really one of the, it happened, I write about it in the Black adulthood section where I kind of stood up. I was in a meeting and they were telling racial jokes, and after the meeting, I wrote an email to the president and said, I didn't appreciate him doing that in my presence, and when I am present, they can't, tell racial jokes. And of course, I then became, just because I wrote that letter, even though I wrote it to one person, it got around the whole department, and I became the difficult worker that stood up to because I stood up to the president, in a sense, which I didn't think that I was standing up to anyone. I was just kind of, I guess I was standing up for myself, but yeah, I became the difficult coworker, and because I'm the black girl, I became the difficult angry black coworker. But I was at a point where I didn't let that define me, So I was comfortable with who I was, so I didn't really care. Now, 5 years earlier, I don't know if I would have done it, so.
Wow. Excellent material. I will hit the phone lines, see if we can get a couple of the questions from our listeners. Let's see, we should have 1804. 1804, do you have a question for Ms. Williams? Hearing background noise. 1804, if you had a question, I can get back. If there's background noise, I can just wait and hit your line in a second. If you're in a noisy spot for a moment. Matter of fact, I'll get you right back. We'll get Mr. Scotty Reed, founder of the Black Talk Radio Network. Mr. Reed, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Greetings, Gus, and greetings, Ms. Williams.
Hello.
Hi. Did you suffer for the email you sent saying you didn't appreciate, the racist jokes being told in your presence? In addition to being labeled the angry black woman, and I imagine your coworkers looking at you, with the side eye or whatnot, did you suffer? Do you think that you suffered any on the job in terms of raises, promotions, or given difficult assignments? Do you think that there was any kind of retaliation along those lines for you standing up?
Well, I think that at the time, they were more worried that I was going to take legal action. So they kind of left me alone. But the funny thing is, this happened like years ago. And 2 years ago, I was talking to a friend, and she still kept in touch with someone who was at that meeting. And they were, talking about who they kept in touch with, over the years. And she brought up my name, and he made the comment. He was like, "Oh, Kim, yeah, I didn't really like her. She was that difficult girl, And
Wow.
I was like, wow, after all of these years, like that kind of stayed with me, because I wrote this email kind of standing up for myself, that I was labeled the difficult girl.
I had a similar situation. Well, it was a number of things. I was kind of like working in a corporate environment with the position that I had, and I would come across racist material left on computers. Like if you on Facebook, you see people that'll post, pictures showing, black people in Gucci, at their wedding and whatnot, and, just really derogatory type images of, I guess, what they would call black people behaving badly. And so I would find these, on the computers that I would go to get information from. And so I had reported that one time. They attacked me, saying I had no business on somebody else's computer. I'm like, excuse me, these are company computers. I was in that section of the building, and I needed to access information. So they blamed me for that. Without going into a lot of details, there were other instances of racism being practiced that I would complain about through the proper channels. And they would always retaliate against me like, it was my fault. You shouldn't have been doing that. You did something wrong or whatnot. And so I started, I'm questioning now if it's even worth it for black people to even make a complaint, that they should just ignore that type of stuff, because it did lead to financial loss for me, not any promotions or anything like that, but my profit sharing was denied to me one time, and I know it was retaliation because I wouldn't sign a piece of paper saying that I had did something wrong, because an employee, a white male I'm supposed to be supervising, threatened me, because I told him he needs to get back to his job area. And they, wrote it up like I had, started a fight or something. And so, do you think it's even worth it for us to even complain on the job? I mean, you're complaining on a racist white supremacist to another racist white supremacist.
I think it's different for everyone. But for me, I feel that I always have to stand up for myself. And that's me. I know that by standing up, there's going to be consequences that I have to face, but I'm okay with those consequences. Everyone's not okay with those consequences. So I think it really depends on if you're okay with those consequences. But for me, me standing up for myself and me standing up for right, outweighs the consequences.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. And one final question, something that Gus touched upon. I think I've heard him on a different program. We don't go on the job to solve the world's problems. Okay, we go to the job. We're not going to work to solve the problem of racism, white supremacy, and all this and that. All the world's ills. We're going on a job to get a paycheck so that we can support our families. What we do outside of that place of employment, then, certainly that's your right. But I, like my younger brother, with the wake of all of this coverage from the Martin murder of Trayvon Martin, he and younger cousin called me, and he, asked me for some advice. He was like, people on the job asking me about, what I think about George Zimmerman getting away with murder and stuff like that. And I told him, I told both of them, I said, you are not there to debate the merits of that case. You are there to get a paycheck so that you can take care of your children and take care of yourself. And so I said it'd be best that y'all follow this one rule, that if anybody asks you about religion, politics, or anything other than sports, that you should just say, well, I don't know much about it, so I don't feel comfortable commenting. What is the next thing on the job that we should be doing? What do you think about that advice? And I'll hang up and take your answer.
I think, and that's why I kind of wrote the book, because I think that my voice is just as valid as anyone else's voice. Now, if you don't like what I have to say, you don't like what I have to say, but I sit and listen to things that you say that I don't like what you're saying. So I kind of disagree with you on that, because my opinion is just as valid as your opinion. And again, it's one of those things where until we kind of start an honest dialogue and be ready to, and stop trying to defend our feelings and trying to validate our feelings. Like, our feelings and opinions are just as important as anyone else's. So, if you want my opinion, if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you my opinion, because my opinion is just as valid as yours.
Thanks for the questions, Mr. Reed, founder, Black Talk Radio Network. The person that dialed in 8423, did you have a question for Ms. Williams?
Hi, yes. Good evening, Gus. Good evening, Ms. Williams. I had a comment and a question. Comment is basically, I think that in general, it's been proven that the demeanor and the racism from white people is not going to change. I don't think that they are going to change who they are. It's been hundreds of years, and I think any black person who is able, I know we all aren't able, but should be going towards starting their own business or opening their own business or becoming independent in some kind of way. And I guess my question to you, are you in a field where that is possible? Because I know all of us are not in fields that is possible.
It's always possible. And even in my field, that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm doing the web series, because I can't wait for someone to give me an opportunity to tell my story. I have to kind of create that opportunity. I think that all of us can create that opportunity. So, you can't, for me, I'm creating that opportunity by writing the book. I'm creating that opportunity by doing the web series and doing theater. So I think that we should all look at ways that we could create our own opportunities instead of waiting for someone to give us that opportunity, because obviously that's not really going to happen. So,
well, my last question is to you: do you see any evidence in your lifetime that white people are going to stop practicing racism? Rather than continually refining it and updating racism, do you see any evidence that they're just going to stop practicing racism completely?
No, I think that it's kind of because you have different people, and you know people. You can't expect everyone to be the same and everyone to be perfect. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you will always have racism. Now, the degree may change with the generations, but yeah, it's something, and that's why I decided to do the web series, because even though I had written the book in 2003, I was still seeing and experiencing the same thing in 2011, even though everyone was claiming that we were in a post-racial society, So, I think it will always exist.
Okay. Those are my questions, and thank you for responding. Take care.
Thank you.
The person that dialed in, last four digits, 3367. 3367. Did you have a question?
Yes. I have a question for Ms. Williams. As I listen to you talk, I'm reminded of Juror B29. Do you know her? In the Trayvon Martin case?
Yes.
Yeah. When you talk about being the only non-white person in the workplace and the pressures that you felt, do you think if you were in that jury room around 5 other white females that you would have held your own, or would you have been...
No, it would have been a hung jury. It would have been a hung jury. No. Yeah.
Okay. That was my question. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right on. If you have questions, the folks that dialed in, press *6. If you have a question for Ms. Williams, the number again, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943#. Press *6 if you have questions. Just going back to the comment that was made about, or rather the incident when you were in a board meeting. I assume this was not a fictional incident when you were in a board meeting where they were supposed to be talking about a program to bring in minority, that was where they used employees, where these racist jokes are being made. Is this a fictional incident, or did this really happen?
That really happened.
Okay. And that, for listeners, you heard me mention on Friday, it was a black female in Australia, not Georgia, not Mississippi, not Alabama, Australia, where she's sitting in on a meeting where they're making a plan for a $6 billion project that's supposed to help the Aboriginal indigenous population in Australia. These are non-white people. And this white guy in this meeting, $6 billion project, says, we've got to be careful because we do have a nigger in the woodpile. And he just continues on 2013 Australia. So same thing happening here, a meeting that's ostensibly supposed to be working to do some good work for non-white people where they're making racist jokes. And you already touched on that you, in the book you wrote, you left the meeting, you eventually did write a letter to voice that this was incorrect for this to be happening in the workplace. You wrote about this incident in the book, and you said the room. I want to share one of the jokes really quick, and then I'll write what you said.
I so apologize, but my battery is dying on my phone. No. I know, I'm sorry. But go ahead.
Okay, we'll go quick so you can at least get a response into this one. One of the racist jokes, it seems like there were many, but one of the racist jokes where they were saying upper class African Americans, that's not realistic. And so that's so funny. And so after they've made a few of these, you write, okay, the room exploded in laughter. Okay, we've gotten ourselves into trouble here. As Adam said trouble, he glanced over my way. My eyes were shouting, damn right, there have to be consequences for your offensive actions. What's wrong with these people? Why are they so ignorant? Why are they so arrogant? Why are they so indifferent? Why do they think they're so invulnerable? That's one, the first question, or the second question that you raised. Why are they so ignorant? That's one that I hear pretty regularly. Do you think these racist jokes, this, in my view, just a racist behavior, do you think this is a result of ignorance? And if so, what is it that you think they are ignorant of?
I think that they're ignorant of just knowing that it's not acceptable, and knowing that it's not kind of okay to do it, I think that I would say that probably they have had done it before with maybe another black person, and that black person didn't speak up. So that if that black person doesn't speak up, then in their eyes it's now okay. It's now acceptable behavior.
Do you think it could be that it's not ignorance, but just racism? We don't really care what the non-white people think. We don't really care if they think this is unacceptable, inappropriate behavior. We just have a different set of standards with regards to what this... I really think that it really depends on the person, because I think that I have experienced things like comments from people who were coming from a malicious place, and I could say, yes, that's racism. However, I've also experienced, comments from people that just didn't know any better, if that makes sense. So I think that you can't just do a blanket statement and say all of it is racism, because it depends on the individual and the situation. You have a section in the book where you talk about you had an Essence magazine on your desk, and that prompted a lot of question. I don't know if that's fiction or not, but it prompted a lot of...
That's fiction, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I'll slide then. You have a different section in the book where I guess it's hoodish tendencies, the chapter, and talking about making long-distance phone calls for a friend on the company phone and using some of the other company supplies and photocopies and that sort of thing.
Well, the phone is fiction, but the supplies are not.
Okay, right on. And when I read that chapter, I just thought, because I think we were talking about perceptions before, and I've heard this about black people, where we get that perception of, they're going to come and use all the company supplies and take all the paper and paper clips and da-da-da-da. And I just sit back and I go, wow, it's been my experience. Nobody gets down with regards to taking and using company supplies. Nobody does this better than white people. I mean, white people, they are just not going to take a couple paper clips and photocopies. It'll be, they have taken the whole pension plan. Sorry, we can't pay anybody next week because Bill has stolen the whole... they get down. It's not going to be little just nickel dime type taking it. I mean, Enron, Bernie Madoff, when they get down on the job, taking resources. And that's... I just wanted to get your comments, because and they do the little small stuff too. It's been my experience. They do that as well, but they get to do way bigger stuff with regards to malfeasance. But that's
in every area, though. It's, they get away with everything that we can't get away with. I mean, that's just the way it is, And yeah, that's with everything.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in, a meeting and they say no, then it's valid. But when you say no, you're difficult,
Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the case, then is that... the term hoodish tendencies, I feel like that's one of those where it's branding this behavior, particularly a behavior that people view as negative or incorrect, something that people should not do, if it's hoodish tendencies, I think that kind of feeds into that perception that this is a black.
No, I don't. But that's the thing. Why is it a negative thing? You know, I think it's again how you perceive things. You know, I don't think. Hey, this is where I come from. So it was just kind of, in a sense, making kind of light of it, you know? Mm. It wasn't anything serious. It wasn't a serious, I don't know. I think that it was just kind of making light of the fact or a joke that when we do it, it's considered footage, you know?
I guess if you can comment before your battery goes out, the series, it's in the second season right now. What are your thoughts on how closely the series has stuck to the book, and how involved are you in the production of the web series?
Oh, I am the production of the web. You know, I write every episode, I produce every episode. And the first season, the episodes were really taken directly from the book, and some of them straight, you know, down to the dialogue. It was the same dialogue. The second season, I'm really trying to kind of tell a story about what's going on in today's society. So there's some parallels with what's going on with the president, what's going on in the workplace, because it's kind of all related in a sense. It's the same thing. You know, people think he's the president of the United States, but at the same time, he's in his workplace. So it's all the same workplace. So I'm trying to connect the two in season 2.
Right on. Guess I'll see if we can get this one in really quick, too, because I've heard O.J. Simpson's name mentioned a lot this week, him going up for parole. On 204 of the book, he wrote, after witnessing the horrific effect of feeding a thirsty community a not guilty verdict of chocolate dump cake, society quickly learned the error of its ways and later quenched the thirst with a cup of OJ to nourish the low-calcium bodies. I guess that's how it works. Feed the hungry souls with respect and starve the full stomachs with impudence. See, they're not all clueless. And this, again, being a metaphor, talking about what happened, the O.J. Simpson, or even before that, with the Rodney King verdict and the acquittal, the riots, and then O.J. Simpson being acquitted. Given that he's in greater confinement now, and what happened with the recent acquittal of George Zimmerman, do you think that they learned a lesson?
I think at the time, that's what they thought. I think that at the time, that was their kind of way of in a way pacifying. But I don't know. It's one of those. I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting question. But
right on. I don't want you to get cut off. If you want to, anything that you want to tell folks to be on the lookout for with regards to the series, I know you have other projects that you're working on as well. Anything that you want to make sure that listeners stay tuned for?
You know, I'm currently working on the Unwritten Rule series based on the book, 40 Hours in an Unwritten Rule, and our third episode airs August 7th. So we just started the season, and we got off to a strong start. So, yeah, just tune in to the series. You can find it online at theunwrittenruleseries.com. We're on Twitter at Racy Rules, and on Facebook, The Unwritten Rules.
Right on. And could you tell folks a little bit, Miles and Zoe, your middle grade book series?
The Miles and Zoe book, It came out in 2010, and it's about, again, twins who journey in the past to learn about Black history, and they travel with an ancestor through the Underground Railroad and learn about the Underground Railroad.
Wow. And it's a whole series of books for younger readers?
So far, there's only been one, but yeah, in the future.
Wow.
I'm busy with the Unwritten rules right now, but
outstanding.
But I think it's important for us to know our history.
Absolutely. Miles and Zoe, The Family Tree. You can check it. You can go to the website butterflyinkpublishing.com. butterflyinkpublishing.com, and you can get a copy of the book. It says for ages 8 to 12, so you can get young folks if you have children, or if you work with children, if you got nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever, some younger folks, even if they just are neighbors. There you go. Miles and Zoe, Underground Railroad. You can start giving them that history at a very young age. I hope you're able to get out a bunch of books in that series. Lord knows we need more children's books that are giving accurate information about racism.
Exactly.
Wow. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, Miss Williams. I will double check, make sure I don't miss any of the listeners' questions. If anybody had a question before Miss Williams' battery goes out on us, you should get your hand up now. Make sure, get it in before she gets cut off. I will assume folks are good. Good.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it has been a pleasure. We will keep watching the series. I know some of our listeners, they are big fans of yours, so I know they will be keeping up. They'll be waiting on August 7th, a new episode, and I think it's every first Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. Every first Wednesday of the month. Right on. That's when the new episode. So August 7th, latest episode from season 2, the Unwritten Rules. Author, producer, Miss Kim Williams. Thoroughly enjoyed having you with us. I hope you take excellent care and keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Okay, you too.
Good evening.
Bye.
Context of White Supremacy. We will take a quick commercial break. If any folks have thoughts or anything they want to get in workplace related, you can share. We will take a quick second for a commercial break. And I will make sure to get in an audio clip. I was going to play this yesterday, but I looked at all of the different news reports that I had collected and folks shared. I don't do that by myself. A lot of listeners, they send in clips that they think are constructive and should be shared. So I get a lot of help. Anyone out there, if you would like to contribute, if you pay attention to the news, or if you see any reports online related to racism, white supremacy, or just constructive information, feel free. You can share. People put the information on my Facebook page, or you can email. My email, untiljustice@gmail.com. I would prefer to not be signed up to any groups. I really hate getting those sorts of mass emails and groups that I have no idea what it is and I didn't sign up for. If it's something that you want to ask, or if you get confused, you're trying to find something in the archives, or you have a question that you would like to submit, or as I said, reports. You read the news, check the news, and you find a report that you want to share, feel free to email it. untiljustice@gmail.com. I guess some people are now using my Twitter as well, so I check that a little more frequently. We're on Twitter @untiljustice. @untiljustice. So we will take a quick commercial break, and I will include one of the news clips that I thought was very important from the last 7 days that relates to the dialogue that we had with Miss Williams about so-called gay people. We'll play that. We'll also take our commercial break and be back if anyone has any thoughts that they would like to get in before we wrap things up. Context of White Supremacy. Matter of fact, you should have your thinking caps on, brain computer ready to roll once the commercial ends. Really be paying attention to this sound clip. Very important. We'll be right back. Context of White Supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, racismdaily.com, racismdaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
Here's the saying, just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he's sitting around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she loves me, that's all that matters. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first, just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker, shit cracker motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
I'm Michelle Martin, and this is Tell Me More from NPR News. Coming up, you might dream of just one of your kids making it as a pro athlete. Well, Gordy Gronkowski is batting 4 for 4 with another in the wings. We'll hear from Gordy and 2 of his sons in just a few minutes. First, though, we want to talk about an issue that's been in the headlines in this country. The issue of gay rights was front and center at the Supreme Court term that just ended. Legal advances were celebrated by LGBT activists everywhere, but just days later, a brutal attack on a lesbian couple in Chicago reminded the country that the challenge of acceptance still remains. And if that challenge remains in this country, activists elsewhere in the world say stories like those are all too common. So now we go to a place where activists say LGBT citizens face ongoing threats, not just to their dignity, but to their lives. We're talking about Jamaica. For many people around the world, it stands for sun and fun, but for too many of its LGBT citizens, it can be a living hell. So says a new film that tries to describe the toll goal of living that way.
The man was killed after a heated argument with men who labeled him as homosexual.
The gruesome killing of 16-year-old Shane Gordon, as well as the injuring of his mother.
The bodies of two men who were believed to have been homosexuals were found in an open lot on Trafalgar
This
Road.
is the second chopping incident in recent times in the parish.
The film is called The Abominable Crime, and it follows the personal stories of several gay and lesbian people in Jamaica. It also chronicles the stories of activists who are challenging anti-gay laws and attitudes there. The filmmaker is Micah Fink. He's with us now. Also with us is Maurice Tomlinson. He is a gay rights activist and lawyer who was also featured in the documentary. Welcome to you both, and thank you both so much for speaking with us.
Hi, Michelle. Glad to be here.
Same here. I'm Maurice.
Mike, how did you get interested in this issue?
I originally was commissioned to do a series of short films by PBS in Jamaica about HIV and AIDS. Jamaica has one of the highest AIDS rates in the gay community in the world. And the question was, why was that happening? And as we dug into it, it became apparent that there were very intense social factors that were driving the epidemic. And one of those social factors is the rampant homophobia that has come to some degree to define current contemporary Jamaican society.
Maurice, as I just want to mention here, by trade, you're an intellectual property rights lawyer. How did you become a gay rights activist?
I was, as you said, intellectual property lawyer, commercial lawyer in chambers, and I was pretty comfortable, but I had a desire to do some kind of social work.
Were you out at that point yourself? Or it's
No.
my understanding that you really had no intention of being out.
Absolutely not. It was, commercially that would have been professional suicide for me to be out. So once I started doing that, I started being confronted with these abuses, which I had no idea were happening because I lived in a bubble. I'm from a privileged class and background. I'm a lawyer, I'm a university lecturer, I drive wherever I need to go, I live in a upscale community. So I wasn't really exposed to the virulent homophobia. As Micah said, you'd read reports, but it really didn't touch and concern my life. But once I started talking to people about their rights as LGBT, it started forcing me to confront some issues that I wasn't very willing to do before. And then I started, in response, writing to the newspapers, just interrogating, why are we so homophobic? Why are we doing these acts of violence to our LGBT brothers, sisters? And the backlash was, to me, astounding. People started calling for my death, saying that if we decriminalize private consensual acts of intimacy between men, it's going to lead to Sodom and Gomorrah or earthquakes on the magnitude of what happened in Haiti. What was most, unnerving for me, that these statements were coming from people who I thought were intelligent and educated and, exposed.
Micah, you interviewed Ernest Smith. He's a former Jamaican parliamentarian who you ask for perspective about the laws which remain on the book. Homosexuality remains a criminal act. You ask him about his perspective on this. Let me just play a short clip from what he had to say. And he's talking about a group, Jamaica Forum for Lesbians, All Sexuals and Gays, or JFLAG. Here it is.
JFLAG seek to tell the world that homosexuals in this country are being violently abused. My answer to that straight is no. N-O, no. Most homosexuals got killed by other homosexuals because of jealousy.
Is that a common point of view?
It is. The reason we kept that in the film is because I heard that from countless people, countless educated, mostly upper-class Jamaicans. They absolutely denied anything was going on. And then I would meet with members of the gay community, and literally the room was overflowing with people who said they'd been attacked, stabbed, murdered, had friends who were chopped to pieces, had friends who were burned out of their houses. There's a profound disconnect in how people are thinking about this issue in Jamaica, and I found that, as a journalist, just fascinating.
One of the people you highlight in the documentary is a woman named Simone, and at the time of the documentary, she had been shot by some neighborhood men. She and her brother both were attacked. They're both gay, and she tried to get a visa to the U.S. to leave, and she said in the film that she feels like The Walking Dead. Maurice, maybe I should go to you on this, because I'm fascinated about it. So on the one hand, here's a woman who was shot down the street from her own house by people who actually she knew who they were. One person was arrested at one point, but the other person was let go. So how is it possible that people can have that level of violence and it still be under the radar to even somebody like yourself who wasn't really aware of it until it was directed at you?
Well, you have to put it in context. In Jamaica, the level of violence is so high that, as one ministry official told me, why are we making such a big deal about attacks against gays? In Jamaica, we kill straight people too. The reality is our murder rate is equivalent to some countries with civil wars. So the few, quote-unquote, gays that are killed really are easily ignored.
Simone made some really tough choices that you, in the course of the film. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, Simone, when I met her, was recovering from having been shot. As she says, the gunman, as they stood over her, said that the lesbian fee dead, which means the lesbian must die, as they shot her. When I first met her, she had a beautiful 7-year-old daughter, Kayla, who she was a single parent taking care of. And as she recovered from her gunshot wounds, came out of the hospital, she realized that the men who had shot her had heard that she had survived and were actually out hunting for her. So her and Kayla went into hiding. Over the next few months when I would return, I'd meet with them in their safe house, and she would just express the anxiety she had that if anybody recognized her, they would simply kill her.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about a new documentary that takes a look at homophobia and violence directed at the LGBT community in Jamaica. We're talking about this with filmmaker Micah Fink and gay rights activist Maurice Tomlinson, who's also featured in the film. And Micah, you have to assume that part of her concern was that her daughter could be harmed as well. If somebody would shoot her in the street that way, that maybe the concern for her daughter's safety wouldn't be paramount. So, to that end, Maurice, you made a difficult decision to leave at some point. You are married to a man in the States, but you've gone back and forth to Jamaica. But at points you have been concerned about the safety of your family members, correct? So tell me how you navigate that.
Well, I have had to make a tough decision not to return to my home in Montego Bay, where my parents still live, because I'm too well known and it's such a small community, and it's just not safe. On one occasion, when I returned after my marriage was made public, I was at a stoplight and some guy saw me in the car and started calling a crowd, and there is the Batman, and that's the Jamaican term, the derogatory term for homosexual. And he started calling a crowd, and thankfully the light changed and we drove off. The challenge in Jamaica is that you never know what's going to be the trigger to an attack. You'd think it's because of how you dress or your notoriety. One never really knows. So as a result, when I do return, it's genuinely just to do the work I'm required to do, and I'm holed up in one particular location, and that has sucked the life and the joy out of returning to Jamaica.
Well, why is it worth it to you?
If every single LGBT left Jamaica, then the situation would not change, and so I have to be there to show the face of a professional LGBT willing to fight for his liberation. Otherwise, nothing will change.
Well, can I just ask you, Maurice, how do you feel the media, the local media, covers these issues? Because clearly people know about these things because the stories are covered. But how is it covered?
That is a show in and of itself, as Micah will tell you. We have 2 major newspapers and 2 major television stations, and it's Fox News versus MSNBC in, one very tolerant, trying to be very balanced, and the other just way out there, wacko, gays are an abomination, and we are, going to lead to Sodom and Gomorrah, the whole 9 yards.
Michelle, it may help you just to set your barometer here. When I first went to Jamaica, I interviewed the Reverend Harold Blair, and Harold Blair is the ombudsman for Jamaica. He's the peacemaker. He's the one who brings together fighting political parties. And, this is the most liberal voice. And what he said is he had recently taken a courageous stand and came out and said that gay people should not be killed by violent mobs. That was the radical progressive voice in Jamaica.
But he then also said that he dislikes homosexuality and, he would prefer his son to be a thief rather than be gay.
Yes, and he said that gays may ultimately lead to the destruction of life on Earth. But still, publicly speaking, he is one of the most liberal voices in Jamaica and the national peacemaker.
Maurice, you make the point in the film, I believe, that you attribute these attitudes to
the church,
the evangelical. No, that's specifically the evangelical, because there's a strong Anglican tradition in Jamaica, right? But you attribute this to the influence of white American evangelicals.
Oh yes,
but the white American evangelicals in this country don't advocate people going around shooting people and killing people and harming people. That is not a part of our. You know what I mean? That's not a part of our.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily.
So what I don't understand it. So why do you think it's taken on? Because you do make the point that there was not this level of kind of vitriol and public harassment even 20 years ago.
Right.
So the question I would have is why now?
Right. And the reality is that we are now seeing the fruits of both your culture war being exported to us, and also the fruits of 20 years or 30 years of indoctrination, homophobic indoctrination by evangelical pastors from America. And there's evidence of that. The Jimmy Swaggarts, etc., their description of gays as abominations, as disease vectors, etc., it was incessant. The result was that the Jamaican pastors saw the success of people like Jimmy Swaggart, and they started parroting that sort of rhetoric. The majority of our musicians grew up in church. I mean, in Jamaica, you didn't have a choice. You had to go to church. And you sit there every Sunday and hearing this kind of stuff. And these guys then produced music. I mean, we have 200 songs which are calling for murder and, abuse of gays. They produced these songs. And when we interrogated, why are you saying these things? Why are you singing these songs? You're not in the vein of Bob Marley, who was all about one love. And they'll tell you, no, the Bible says that homosexuality is an abomination. And, that's the end of the discussion. And we now have a situation where that anti-gay animus, which was exported to us by the evangelicals, is now taken root in Jamaica. We now are producing our own version, which is much more virulent, and we are re-exporting it to the rest of the Caribbean.
How is Simone doing, by the way? How is she doing?
Simone and Kayla are doing great. They've really firmly rooted themselves in Holland, where they've sought asylum, and Kayla's excelling in school, and Simone is training herself to be a nurse. So,
wow, that was an amazing story.
Yes, it touched a lot of people at the screening. People were very moved by it, that Kayla story.
Maurice, how old is your son?
My son is 12.
12. And is he with you?
No, he lives with his mother in Belize, a country
in
I
Belize?
cannot... Yes.
Well, how does your former wife feel about your coming out? Is she okay with it, or is she mad
at
you? Well,
the thing is, she knew about my homosexuality for 10 years before we got married. I mean, she was my quote-unquote fag hag for 10 years. I mean, she knew all my boyfriends, etc. But then when my last gay relationship failed and her straight relationship failed, we thought, well, let's try the marriage thing. It might cure me and will help her. And of course, when that didn't work, it was an acrimonious divorce, but we maintain our civility because of our son. And I was sharing with you that she now lives with him in Belize, and because of the law in Belize, which bans the entry of homosexuals, I am trying to sue that country to get access to see him.
Maurice Tomlinson is a lawyer and human rights activist who divides his time between Jamaica and the U.S. He joined us from member station WXXI in Rochester, New York. Micah Fink is a filmmaker and producer of the documentary The Abominable Crime, in which Maurice Tomlinson is featured. The film is currently on the film festival circuit now. He joined us from member station WBGO in Newark, New Jersey. Thank you both so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Bruce, fine. I wonder if the victim of racism that you heard, Maurice Tomlinson, she said, I wonder if he's married to a white man. You already know. I would encourage victims of racism who are still pondering on all of the so-called gay rights, gay marriage, LGBTQI, whatever other letters they want to add on to it, who are still thinking on that. If you think that's acceptable, whatever your views are on that, I would encourage you to think. Now, these folks are putting out a documentary. We played the clip from Democracy Now! A couple weeks back, where there's a new documentary that's about to come out, The New Black, about so-called gay people in the U.S. being abused by other black people and how homophobic the black community is, I would just encourage folks to think about that. How is it that white people are willing to invest so much currency, time, and energy into doing these projects where they portray black people as being homophobic all over the world? Robert Mugabe, no good, homophobic, evil despot, all over the continent of Africa, where they do not support so-called homosexual behavior. Jamaica, this area of the world. Ponder on that. Just think about it. I know I've heard folks who say that they don't agree with Mr. Fuller when he says, this is a part of the racist agenda. Just ponder. Do you see white people have the same level of concern for black people who are not gay? I've been to Jamaica. Jamaica is not a safe place to be. That is the only spot I've ever been to in the world. I was in the airport in Miami going to Jamaica. There were black people who were natives from the island. And I was by myself. If I'd go travel or what have you, I'm ornery. And I'm a victim of racism, so I minimize contact. No problem going out by myself. And they said, "Oh, wow, you going to Jamaica by yourself?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Do you know anybody there?" And I said, "No." And they were like, "Oh, it's a little dangerous. Make sure you're safe." We're in Miami. We haven't even arrived in the country yet. In Miami, and they're saying this. And I heard this over and over. Then when I got there, it was, "Oh, you're by yourself? Be careful." I was in Montego Bay. I was in Montego Bay. I went to leave the hotel because I'm accustomed to, roaming, doing my thing. I go to leave the hotel. I think it's, I'll call it 11:30. Could have been 30 minutes either way. Could have been midnight. Could have been a little bit before. We'll say 11:30. I'm leaving my hotel at 11:30. And the doorman, he says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I just want to go out and walk. The hotel is on the beach. I mean, what? I'm just going out." And he says, "Well, there are robbers on the road." I said, "Oh, thank you kindly." I turned around immediately and went back to my room. If you have not been there, Jamaica is a dangerous place for victims of racism. I think that's the reputation white people, and all of this is a result of racism, white supremacy, all of this. But as they said in the report, you have a lot of people who are killed there who are not gay just because of racism, white supremacy. That's what we tend to do, take our frustrations out on other victims, other black people. And there's a lot of that in Jamaica. So even that to me is suspicious that we're going to focus just on the black people who are suffering because they are so-called gay. The other black people that are dying, we'll take care of that later. I'll make sure I repeat again because I've said this. I do not think any non-white people should be mistreated because they are so-called gay. That is incorrect. Should not be done under any circumstances. I would not support any laws, rules, whatever, about killing anyone because they're gay, beating them up because they're gay. All of that is totally ridiculous and incorrect. Everything focuses on the problem, white people promoting this behavior, then coming around and labeling black people as homophobic. All of my focus and frustration about this is directed at racist man and racist woman. You even heard in the clip where they said that it was white people who brought this down to Jamaica and saying, "Well, wait a minute, we don't agree with this." And he said that in the clip, even though he said that the black people in Jamaica have become violent about this and attacking other gay people and all that. But he said, this came from you all, other white people, fussing and arguing over this behavior. I would just encourage folks to think and just pay attention to how frequently you see these sorts of stories. With all of the problems that black people have globally, where do you think this would fall on the priority list? Just rank it for yourself and see if you're seeing coverage that exceeds how much of a priority this should be for what's happening for us on the plantation under racism, white supremacy. Just keep that in mind. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. A little bit earlier, quite a bit earlier actually, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Pacific. Racist suspect from South Africa. This is very short notice. She didn't get, I emailed her more than 3 weeks ago, and she did not respond until yesterday evening. So this is very short notice, but that is all good. We will be ready to roll. Racist suspect who is married to and has a child with a non-white female, Jillian Shute. We'll be looking forward to chatting it up with her tomorrow. She's not even on the suspect list because she is doing the tragic arrangement thing, as Mr. Fuller wrote in the code book. You're off the suspect list. That is a maximum act of racist aggression, but it will be good to have her on the program tomorrow. Tune in 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We'll hit the phone lines in case anyone had anything that they wanted to share before we wrap things up. The folks, I'm just going to open up everybody's line. Hopefully folks can be civil about it and not interrupt, and hopefully people won't have a lot of background noise either. Let's see. So we should have 3367 1590, Mr. Scotty Reed, our caller in Alabama, and 1804. Your 5 lines should be open.
Hi, this is 1804. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I took the liberty to start speaking first just because I have a story relating to the segment you just played in the area of the world called Haiti last week. Out of the blue, there were demonstrations against homosexuality, and allegedly 2 homosexuals were killed by the end of the demonstrations. This spread on the internet and in the news like wildfire until and you know how media works, and usually the initial story sticks. And then, and a lot of people were like scratching their heads. How did this happen? Because it's exactly like what they were saying about Jamaica. What they were saying about Jamaica 30 years ago. That generally, even though the society does not condone homosexuality, generally there's not, there's kind of a don't ask, don't tell attitude about it, and people just and people just kind of live their lives. And that kind of stuck, and then, I don't know, like 2 days ago, a story comes out in the Miami Herald saying, actually, this reporter says that she works for the Miami Herald, but she has Haitian parents. And she said she went around and tried to look for evidence of the 2 people being killed, and she said she never found it until she finally spoke to the chief of police, who said, actually, no, the 2 people may have been assaulted, but they were not killed. Anyways, this is just to say that it really looks like, and all over the Haitian internet, including a Haitian man who's a homosexual, wrote something on Counterpunch saying the same thing as was said in the segment, that this is really, this notion that homosexuals should be killed is an import from white American pastors. So I just thought I'd say that story because it's very related to the segment you just played, and because it appears like this is a label they now want to stick to the area of the world called Haiti. That they want to kill homosexuals when in fact that never happened.
Disgraceful. Any information related to that, if you want to post it on the Facebook page or what have you, that would be grand. I'm sure folks would appreciate getting more resources.
Yeah, I believe I posted the article from the Miami Herald saying that it was actually a lie that 2 homosexuals were killed. But what's really interesting also is that nobody knows where these demonstrations come from, because there's not even a law. Nobody's trying to pass a law in Haiti saying homosexuals should be outlawed. I mean, I'm sure that there's one of those every country has an old law saying homosexuality is illegal, but nothing like that has even been passed recently, and then all of a sudden these demonstrations spring up and nobody understands where they come from. You know what I mean? Like, there's always this stuff that everybody's like, where is that coming from? And all evidence seems to point to the evangelical missions yet again. So this is very interesting because apparently it's the same evangelical missions that lobbied in Uganda to have laws by which homosexuals would be executed. So there's an interesting. Don't you think there's an interesting game being played here? It's like it seems like this is yet another way to demonize viewers all over the world. And again, both sides are being played by RWSs.
Victims of racism, just make sure folks get the acronyms. Victims of racism, racist white supremacists, get the acronyms. I totally agree. I'm trying to mute myself so that other folks can say whatever they want to say. But yeah, I completely agree. And that's why I think it's very important. You have to be really careful how you word it so that it's not an attack against anybody who happens to be non-white and so-called gay. All of this is focused on racist white supremacists and how they're manipulating all this. But I completely agree, 1804. I'll mute my line.
On the manipulation, of course, I don't know, but I have seen evidence that NGOs, non-governmental organizations, for example, will stage protests in other countries, and they will just simply pay people to turn out to protest. Those people aren't really, there to protest what's being protested or what's it's said to be protesting, but they're just simply poor people trying to get paid. So that's something to think about as well. This is documented. I suspect that in Egypt, the protest against the democratically elected Muslim Brotherhood president, I think that Western-based non-governmental organizations that the United States government and other governments work through paid people to turn out in the streets and starting to get it started. And then others may join in because they're influenced by seeing other people protesting. So I don't know if that's what's occurring in Haiti, but it could be a possibility.
I think it's extremely likely because, as you know, the area of the world known as Haiti is the Republic of NGOs, what with 3,000 NGOs, all of which coming from, our RWS countries. Sorry, I'm using the acronyms, Gus. There's a reason why I'm doing that. I'm not alone.
Oh, I assumed that. No apology.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, there's 3,000. It's apparently the country with the most NGOs on the planet. So I would not be surprised at all if indeed there is some NGO money behind NGO, and it's got a lot of NGOs and a lot of evangelical missions. So if that's a double whammy, if that isn't a double whammy, what is? So they could very easily be financing both sides, because the NGOs will tend to be, the human rights types, the fake human rights types, and then, the evangelical missions will finance the other side. So all of that is a recipe for disaster.
Could somebody say what an NGO is? I'm kind of
non-governmental organization. That means that it's an organization like a non-profit or something like that, but it's primarily funded by a government. So they're called NGOs. Non-governmental organization is what the acronym stands for.
It basically means not-for-profit. The same thing as not-for-profit in this country.
I seen a video once like that. They was talking about it was, I don't know if they were talking about Syria or something like that. I seen a video where they was talking about how they would go and the white people, they admitted that they were doing it on this video. It was on YouTube. They said what they would do, they would go to the police. They were talking about when they was in the air world. They would go to the police and tell the police that the fight is not against them, and they would try to reach the humanity of the police where they wouldn't be like, just doing their job or whatever like that. But they went in deep detail. They do this secretly? Cause like when I seen it, like the video I seen, it was like coming out talking about how they go about doing this.
Usually they try to do it in secret. They don't publicize the fact that they're paying people to go hold a sign, out in the square or something. That's not something they would publicize. I believe it was Egypt. That's illegal in Egypt. Non-governmental organizations cannot interfere in their internal politics. And there were some suspected racists who were arrested from the United States accused of violating that principle. They aren't supposed to be financed. Any like nonprofit, what we know as a nonprofit here in the United States, any type of organization like that in Egypt, they are not supposed to be taking funds from foreign entities. And so, yeah, I mean, even the United States has laws on the books like that. The reason that I called back in, and I can wait if somebody else has something else that's still on that subject of the clip, I can wait. But I was calling back in about the workplace stuff. I can wait.
We want to round this out. That way we can, if folks want to get back to workplace, anybody, because there were 3 other people who haven't shared at all. Did you all have anything you wanted to get in on the homosexual, anti-sexual aspect before we move?
I had an observation about the clip. I just noticed that I think it was the professor or the producer of the film, it sounded like a white male, and I'm not sure if there's visual or to this clip. I'm assuming that the producer of the documentary that they were referring to is a white male. Why didn't they talk about his sexuality? Because it seemed like it was just focused on the black male. And also, I had a question about, they talked about Belize and how his son is in Belize with the mother, and Belize does not allow homosexuals into their country, and I just thought that was interesting, and then wondered if anyone had any other information about that.
Micah Fink, that's the name of the person that's doing the film, and he, to me, there's no confusion to me. This just looks like a white guy. I thought it was a white guy in the clip, and I'm looking at his photo. I can post a picture so y'all can see it on my Facebook page, but this guy, no dispute at all. He looks like a white person. The other victim that was there, I've seen his photograph. He's a black person, but he is married to a white person. But I'll post it so y'all can see.
Yes, just by listening to the clip, it just shows the level of confusion, not just in America, but all over the world, man, with black people. You know, you got this guy, the victim, saying that he's fighting for his liberation as a gay person, not as a black person. And that's the same thing going on in America. You know, you got black people just giving up, trying to liberate themselves as being black, but to be gay. I mean, what do you do when you just give up? I mean, I'm getting to the point where I don't see no end in sight. It seems like this is a war that we cannot win. I mean, we're being attacked from so many different areas, from so many different people. I mean, what do you do? I mean, black people, we're the most materialistic people on the planet. We have to be. I mean, the homosexuality, I mean, the incarceration rate. I mean, how can we win this war? It seems like it's getting worse. It's not getting better at all. You know, I mean, what do you do?
And you got Don Lemon agreeing with Bill O'Reilly that all of black people's problems are really just us being ignorant, nothing to do with racism, white supremacy. It's sagging pants and our own inability to pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. So I just the anti-blackness that's in the mainstream media is just over the top right now. So.
With Don Lemon, that's for sure. A Clarence Pendleton ghostwriting. He's on CNN, so I mean I wouldn't even have any suspicion there. I know that they have written scripts. You do not just get to go on CNN and say whatever you want. So I strongly believe that white people are just writing whatever they want him to say when he goes on to speak about whatever. He's normally on talking about racism, even though he's not going to talk about it accurately. But I would just keep that in mind as well. And he's admitted to being abused.
Can you say that name again, Gus? I actually had planned to cover that on a segment tomorrow night. I've already made my graphic, Understanding Don Lemon's Expression of Racism and White Supremacy. What's the name of the Pendleton is writing for him?
No, it's Clarence Pendleton. He is a black male. He's dead now. But Clarence Pendleton is a black male. He had a prominent position in the 1980s on the Civil Rights Commission. And he took a lot of criticism. He was behaving very similarly to Don Lemon and other black people who come out and take positions or views against black people and say, well, the problem, you need to pull your pants up and blah, blah, blah. We don't need affirmative action and this sort of thing. He was saying that sort of thing in the 80s. And I mentioned him because we had a white guest on the program whose name is Colin Flaherty. He was on in May, and he said that he used to write the material that would be attributed to Clarence Pendleton. He said that was his job. He was a ghostwriter. And he talked about it on the program. And if you go, you can look at his Clarence Pendleton's obituary, and you'll see that he got all this criticism, and black people the way that black people talk about Clarence Thomas, black people used to talk about Clarence Pendleton that way because he would say a lot of similar things. In fact, they mentioned Clarence Thomas in the article, and they said that it used to be people didn't even know Clarence Thomas's name. The Uncle Tom of the day at that time was Clarence Pendleton. And then I find out that this white guy, Colin Flaherty, admitted to writing this material. And Mr. Pendleton, he died at 57 of a heart attack. And for me, that is a beautiful illustration because they have archive footage, like they have material of him on C-SPAN and all this from the 80s. And he's talking about, in fact, there's one, I've never seen anything like this in my life. You have this black guy, victim of racism, on C-SPAN, and he's getting grilled. 3 white people, they're asking him questions. I've never seen them have a panel of all white people asking questions of one black person about racism and his views, his stance, why he said this, why he said that. They interview him for maybe 20 minutes. He gets off. And then these 3 white guys, they sit around and pick apart and analyze everything that he said. And I was just like, wow, this is incredible. So that's who he is. That's the reference point that I always make when you see these black people come out or any victims of racism come out and they're saying these sort of things, to keep in mind that a white person could have scripted all of this to showcase them and make them held accountable for that. I'll mute my line.
Because they're usually reading from a teleprompter anyway. I documented on a YouTube video this black female broadcaster, I guess you would call her anchor woman on the 6 o'clock news. She's been on for a while, and she gave out some factual information about the Trayvon Martin story, George Zimmerman murder trial. I mean, it was just so blatantly false to anybody who was keeping up with it. And then I remember, because I actually took a tour of Columbia School of Broadcasting, and I got to play like the news anchor, and they're sitting there reading from a teleprompter. So I knew right away that, I didn't attribute the false statements to her. I attribute it to the producers who wrote that out for her. And I don't know, but I suspect the same thing is going on with these big networks, is that people like Don Lemon and others, even Bill O'Reilly, probably are reading from teleprompters the entire time. You can pretty much tell, when they start coming off the cuff or whatnot. And so, but I've been taking a look at that, what he said, and trying to understand why he said what he said in the context of white supremacy. Can I now talk about the workplace stuff, or did anybody else?
I was just wondering what you guys brought up Sunny Austin. I mean, because she's been pretty much in the Trayvon Martin camp. Do you guys think she's being scripted as well?
Who?
Could you repeat that?
Sunny Austin. I mean, do you guys think she's being scripted as well? Because she's been in the Trayvon Martin camp.
Tony, I'm not familiar with the name.
Sunny Austin? She's on CNN?
I don't watch a lot of network stuff, and so I'm not familiar with her.
No one else knows her?
First time I've heard her name.
Oh, okay. She's the light-skinned black woman, the former prosecutor that was doing all the news and stuff on CNN.
Former prosecutor?
Yeah, Sunny Austin. You guys not familiar with her?
Sunny Austin? Am I saying?
Hostin, yes.
Hostin, sorry.
Sunny Hostin.
Does she have her own show?
Well, she's on CNN. She was the one that was in the courtroom every night on CNN, and she would come in and she would be on an Anderson Cooper's show.
Okay.
Does she have short hair and wear glasses? Long hair, and really attractive.
She looks like she might have a white parent. I'm looking at her.
Yeah, she's like Puerto Rican, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at her now. I didn't follow the Zimmerman trial at all, so I didn't see that. I've never seen this person before. I feel like I see CNN at least once or twice a week. I've never seen this person before. But I wouldn't be surprised if the same is true for her. If she's saying something that sounds like it's bashing black people or supporting George Zimmerman, I would not be surprised. That would be my expectation, that white people are scripting whatever she's supposed to say too.
I wanted to say one thing about that clip. I heard I guess the guy, I forgot his name, but the gay guy from Jamaica or whatever, he was talking about how the American evangelicals came over there and started teaching them about how homosexuality is an abomination and all that. Which I'm sure probably before the evangelicals came over there, they probably already knew that because, you know, the whole Judah and Haile Selassie thing is real big over there. So they probably already knew that before the evangelicals came. But I don't know. Tell me about it because I don't really know what was going on because I was just hearing the audio. But was that the lady over Democracy Now! Who said, well, when we came over there, we didn't tell you to kill them or to practice violence against them? Was that lady?
Oh, no. No, that Amy Goodman, racist suspect, she's on Democracy Now! That clip, the clip that I played today, that was from NPR, and the female who was conducting the interview, she's a black female. I think that was Michelle Martin. She's a black female. That was not the racist suspect at Democracy Now!
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was kind of suspect how when he had pointed it back to the evangelical Americans, all of a sudden they came to the evangelical Americans' defense, like they don't practice violence against homosexuals, when it's like widely known that yeah they do. You know, they beat them up. All type of violence come from not just the quote unquote evangelical side of it, but just white people who practice Christianity. They practice violence against homosexuals in the United States. It's like the same thing don't go on over here. They've even made movies about it, like white people in the military who are gay have to go through violent attacks against other whites who are in the military. So I thought it was suspect how they came to the offense of evangelical Americans, you know. But yeah, I mute my line. Appreciate straighten me out on that though, because I thought that was the lady from Democracy Now!
I wasn't sure that was a non-white female because I'm sure you guys heard her say we don't in reference to when it was said that when he said that white evangelicals started all this or whatever. She said, did you guys know? She said we don't. I guess she was trying to say we don't teach that, but that was kind of weird. Did it, I don't know. You can answer if you noticed it or not. I'm pretty sure. That was interesting to me. But, yeah, that was kind of confusing. I didn't know that was a non-white female. But I heard Mr. Fuller say that in referring to homosexuals being assaulted, he said that he was saying that the person that assaulted the homosexual was likely to assault, somebody anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a person that assaults people, they and I found it interesting that in the interview, he said that, you never know what the triggers are going to be. He said that it's already a highly, violent place, it's a violent environment. That is critical, that part. So, when people listen, I hope that they caught that, that they basically gave up the goods. Like, you got a situation where people are, very upset about the conditions, and they're assaulting people and whatever, it's violence and things like that. So, you're going to ask the question: was that person likely to assault somebody, anyway? Had that person assaulted any, people that wasn't gay? And what did he say about them? Oh, you think you're something, whatever. You think you're better or whatever, and then assault them. And so now what you going to say? Oh, we got to watch out for people. We got to protect the people that have pride or whatever. So, yeah, that's a critical part. You feel me? Like, it's a violent place, so why not go into that? You know what I'm saying? You're already dealing with a highly violent place, so.
Absolutely. I thought it had been a while, relatively speaking, it had been a while since I heard that clip the first time. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, I'm going to chop this up and do everything with it. Because when it was so crowded, I was like, oh, the creator sent this just for me. He said, we have to put this in context. A lot of people die in Jamaica anyway. I was like, of course. I mean, yeah, that right there I thought was huge. And I thought they kind of moved along quickly to get away from that. And him saying the few, quote unquote, individuals who are gay who are killed here in comparison to the amount of violence that happens in Jamaica, period, as a result of racism, white supremacy. Super important to keep that in context. I agree with what he said. And to your point about Michelle Martin, in terms of her saying we, I did not notice that. But when you brought it up, it reminded me, since we mentioned Malcolm X already today, it reminded me of when he's given talks and what have you, where he said the sickness of racism, white supremacy, we sick, we end up identifying with white people. We sick. He said he started to get so bad where people were saying our astronauts. He said, that is a black person that is out of their mind, confused about white people, racism, white supremacy. But that's what it made me think of when you mentioned that. Can we get to the workplace now? Always good to make sure we get that. Can we do workplace now?
1604, I have one last point about all this. The World Bank has been trying to bankrupt Jamaica, and of course in Haiti there's all sorts of RWS countries trying to make Haiti declare X, Y, and Z. So do not be shocked if in the next couple of months you hear major global RWS institutions issue statements about places like Jamaica and Haiti saying, well, because they are so terrible to homosexuals, we are issuing XYZ sanction, and do not be surprised if those sanctions are of an economic nature, and if those sanctions are sanctions that put those countries further into crisis, into economic crisis. In other words, do not be surprised if RWS countries use this homosexuality issue against those countries full of VORs. Things like the World Bank, the IMF, etc. That's my prediction.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I wanted to bring that up, too, because it reminded me of the whole Jewish thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, the Jews are being abused over there. We got to go to war. That exactly reminded me of when, somebody was saying, like, oh, yeah, you were saying 1804, like, this so-called news went out of this Haitian gay person being killed in Haiti. It turned out to be a lie, but it just went out all over. It went out. I guess you were saying. I think you were saying that it was, kind of went out, and it just reminded me of the Jews. And the fact, and what came to mind was that this is like it's a war tactic. So I never got a chance to say that, but I'm glad that you I think that's an important piece. This is what the homosexuals are being turned into. We can use them as the world victims or whatever, and now we have a license to where any of these homos is being abused or whatever, we gonna go save them.
Go in under the banner of human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when President Obama was in Africa a couple of weeks ago, what was the first order of business when he was meeting with African heads of state? Oh, you have to start treating your homosexuals better, remember? So, and they are gearing up to make this issue a major issue to further subjugate and mistreat countries full of VORs all over the world. And it's going to take some very interesting, it's going to take some very interesting turns. In other words, it's going to amplify in the next couple of months/years. That's going to become the big, well, look at them, they need to be civilized, they need, they're treating the homosexuals not so well, look at the laws they have. And that's going to be the reason why we need to occupy them. In the case of Haiti, that's the reason why we need to stay there. They really need us to continue civilizing them, because the UN is occupying Haiti right now, et cetera, et cetera. This is going to be a huge pretext going forward.
I guess it's okay to go to the workplace thing. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to revisit some of her answers to the questions that I asked, and I guess I'm asking you all, do you think it's productive? And I guess I'm just basing it off of my experience that every time I complained, and this is after, I didn't even start thinking of it in terms of white supremacy in the codified terms, which I've learned since listening to the C.O.W.S. I was just looking at it just racism, white supremacy, but I wasn't seeing the larger context out there. These are just some racist white people, and I wasn't seeing it as being part of a system. And but when I look back at it now, I'm thinking, okay, here I am complaining about one racist white supremacist to another racist white supremacist. That doesn't even make sense for me to do that. And so I'm thinking in terms of everything that I suffered, the stress, the loss of money, loss of revenue, economics, that's under people activity, okay? Loss of sanity, because I'm like, well, why doesn't anybody care? I got the evidence right here. It says it right here in your code of conduct manual. It's right here in black and white. Right here. Why isn't anybody helping me, and why are they acting this way? I mean, I got very stressed out. And so when I look back on it now, and I'm thinking how I eventually was shown the door, the final straw was me standing up for a black woman or giving my deposition when I was asked by this black woman's attorney, did you witness this vice president sexually harassing other females on the job? Did you witness him sexually harassing her? I guess that was the final straw, and they just made it to the point to where I had to resign. They were making my life pure hell. And so when I look back at that, I have to ask myself, being that I had, people have children, like my brother asking me these questions, should I comment on it? Should I tell them this and tell them that? And I'm thinking, the shortage of jobs out there for black people, should we be engaging in, is that smart for us to be engaging in that type of activity on the job? It doesn't seem smart. I'm not saying lay down, and I'll say this and I'll let somebody answer. I would say that the smartest thing, looking back in the rearview mirror for me to have done, was to not complain after each incident, but to keep a journal. coming in the door, I should have known. Well, I should have known that this is a racist white supremacist workplace when I was made to cut my dreadlocks, because the person who referred me, got me the interview, said might be best if you cut your dreadlocks, because this dude that's going to be interviewing you, the head of this department, he said stuff before about black people with dread. I should have known coming in the door of what I was getting myself into, so I should have kept a journal and taken photos of evidence and stuff like that, and just documented all of these series of things, and then at some time tried to bring a lawsuit for a hostile work environment, but just it doesn't make sense to me to be going to white supremacists complaining about other white supremacists. And I'll shut up and get y'all replies if anybody has anything to offer.
Yeah, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would like to thank him for saying what he said.
Hang on one second. We got an echo. If you have your speakerphone on, if you could turn that off. No speakerphone. And if you're listening, okay, I don't hear now. Let's try again. Go ahead, caller in Alabama.
All right, yeah, I like to I think that was Mr. Scott Reed who was talking. I like to thank him because when he said that, as soon as he said that, I could just visualize my mama. When she used to tell me, like when I was in my early 20s, it was like I'd go on jobs and I'd talk about racism, and I really wouldn't start the conversation, but I add some in when they were talking about, I think it was blacks talking about Mexicans, how Mexicans coming over taking all the jobs, and then I said, well, really, they just coming back home because this is their homeland anyway. And I lost my job right there. You know what I'm saying? And just all type of stuff. Even the job I'm on now, when I started almost 2 years ago when I started this job I'm on now, the first thing she told me, she was like, don't talk about religion, white supremacy, or nothing like that. I understood then, but back in the day, I didn't understand. I had the type of mindset the lady had. Like, my opinion matters too. You see what I'm saying? Because I guess I was naive to the point where I did not really know the power of racists, even the so-called liberal racists who pretend they're not, how quick they can end your job. And like Mr. Reed said, it's already hard enough as it is for a black person. I never been to prison in my life, don't have any felonies, but it's so hard for me to get a job, man. It's like I'm an ex-con. How hard it is for me to get a job, man, it's like I'm an ex-con with 2 strikes. So I agree 100%, man. You said, man, like I said, you spoke with years and years of wisdom, even though if you haven't lived all them years. It was like I said, when you said that, I just heard my mama speaking right there. I mute my line.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to say that to your question, I think, Mr. Reed, you have to, I guess, I put a person, not you personally, but make that decision on, you have to be smart, you know what I'm saying? Is it smart? Is it not smart? If it's smart, then go ahead and do it. If it's not smart, don't do it. Like, I had a situation where I was on the job, and this white person come up to me. He was a lead person, and he tells me, because one of my cousins was working for the company also. He tells me that he tells me this whole scenario about how my cousin got arrested and how he had to go bail him out, blah blah blah. Now, for me, that was just way too familiar. Like I was very upset. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, man, why is this dude talking to me like this? Like he knows me, telling me this. So I told my cousin later on that day, and he told me, he said, he told me what to do. He put me up on, he said, go to this other white person, more refined white person, tell him what happened, and, tell him that, he gave me kind of like he told me to tell him how I felt about it, how my cousin reacted after hearing it, blah blah blah, right? So I did that, and we ended up getting compensation for that that incident, and we did it with such tact where the dude that was talking so much or whatever, he didn't even really get that, like he didn't have any animosity towards me because I was working directly, with him. My cousin was working in a whole nother, area or whatever, department. Like he wasn't even nowhere near that location now that we were at. But yeah, what I found out though is that you can go to the wolf in sheep's clothing and rat on the wolf, because the more refined people, they don't want all this talking out the side of your mouth at the business or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So if you're able to identify the wolf in sheep's clothing and know that they're trying to maintain their so you just got to be smart about it. I mean, that's just a scenario that happened, and where I straight up, I went to another white person to tell them what happened, what this other white person did. I'm new on the job. I'm a nobody. You know what I'm saying? And this person is basically plugged in. The one that I'm reporting on. He's a member of the family or whatever. I mean, like, this is family enterprise or whatever. So who am I? But it worked out. It worked out perfectly. So I can
understand that.
Yeah, that's it.
If somebody knows, you know what I'm saying, how the plantation works. Okay, this overseer over here, he's like this and he's like that, and he doesn't appreciate these sort of things because he's kind of trying to maintain the profitability of the company and, productivity. I can understand that. But on that plantation that I was on, man, they were all just terrible, terrible, terrible racists. I'm telling you, they were very, very just off the chain. Nobody cared. Human resources woman made a point to tell me, and this is something else I told my brother as well, a mistake that I made about on my breaks, like my lunch break or my 15-minute break. Since I have access to a computer, I get on the computer, go to forums and stuff, black forums, people talking about racism, white supremacy, or, talking about this or that, politics, and I'm on the forum. And then this woman in human resources made a point to tell me, that she knows what websites I'm going on. Oh, I'm like, okay, I'm not looking at no porn or nothing like that. And she said, I ain't say that. And, I'm just telling you, I know what websites you be on. And left it at that, and left. And so, I told my brother, because he has access to a computer on the job he has now, that they're asking him about, Trayvon Martin and all this and that. And my brother has a felony. So, any job that he has is a blessing, and he got children to feed. And so I'm telling him, don't be participating in any discussions concerning religion, politics, or race on your job, because those discussions you're having on your job, guess what? It's not going to bring racism, white supremacy to an end. And then the wrong person, you don't know what they're thinking or why they're even asking you. Okay? And then I don't care if it's a black person. They might be, I'm trying to stay codified here. They might be confused and looking to improve their position by crapping on you or ratting you out or something. Yeah, he thinks this and thinks that, and so I was like, no, don't go there. You're there to do your job. I feel like there's just a time and a place for everything. Would I let somebody just call me a nigger, to my face? You nigger, spit in my face? No, I'm not going to do that. But I'm saying, like, finding stuff like, racist pictures on a computer, racist emails circulating jokes and stuff through the email. Is that worth me possibly losing money and losing my employment if I don't know if these people are going to do anything about it or not? So I would just say, if those things happen, document them. Just put it in a journal, print the email out, and just save them up for a time down the road where, when the rubber meets the road or whatnot, then you'll have the evidence. But just complaining about them and until you really know, I think it's counterproductive. And again, jobs for black people are in short supply. That's all I got to say. I just thought it was bad. I just thought it was counterproductive. I mean, that's her view, to say, well, you got an opinion too. I got an opinion, and they asked me my opinion. Well, your opinion don't matter, okay? Your opinion don't matter on a plantation. So that's all I got.
Any other folks who haven't shared? Did y'all want to respond to Mr. Reed's question? He asked the question. Yeah, just anybody? Any of the folks who haven't shared, did y'all want to respond to his question?
Can I be heard?
Speak up.
Hello?
I can hear you. We can hear you. Just speak up.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Reed's question. When it comes to work issues and policies and just general work things, I pretty much have the attitude on the plantation that if it don't concern white people, it don't concern me. I document something one time, it's their world, it's their plantation. If they don't address it, I just move on. I don't let it stress me out. According to what Mr. Fuller said, which I totally agree, I'm a messenger, and I have an overseer. And I have been into situations where an overseer has wanted me to pile some more work on another victim. And what I do is I let them know that victim is the most valuable thing and the most valuable commodity that I have, and I don't see any more time for any more work, and I just keep moving on and I let them deal with it because it's their plantation. So I'll be my line.
I dig that. Being that's one of the big things too. Why I think work is so important to discuss. I feel like it's really a travesty like that. I'm putting my name at the top of the list that we don't spend more time talking about racism on the job. Because that's where it can't just be these no good crackers. That's not going to work. We know that's not going to work on the job. It can't just be I'm mad because they were telling racist jokes or they, as Mr. Reed was saying, had some racist images on their computer, or even the sly stuff that they do that's not as overt as all that. Just being loud and rowdy, you can't handle it the same way you would if you were just out and about on your free time. Codification really has to shine on the job, where you pick your words, care every word, every syllable, your tone, all of that. And even small details, like with Mr. Fuller, when he says, you do not have a grievance, you do not have a gripe, you do not have a complaint. If you are going to call attention at all, it is, I am making a report of incorrect behavior. I am making a report of a violation, or even if you tie it to the Constitution, I am making a report that we might have constitutional violations on the job. That's very different than, damn it, I'm mad and I have a complaint. Very different. I'm not saying all black people do that, but just talking about on the job, as Mr. Reed said, when you do this, you don't want it to be something where you lose your job or end up getting more stress. You want it to be, this is done in such a way, you get the slam dunk outcome, as 909 said, where you end up getting compensated, or the white person that was doing something incorrect, that incorrectness stops. At minimum, that's what you want, where you are not mistreated, no other non-white people are harmed, and whatever that is incorrect that's happening ceases. That's what you want. And you really have to do some thinking and getting your words in order to make it happen in that manner, from the weak position that we are in as victims of racism. But that's why I think it's so important for us to get in a habit of talking about this more and really trying to be better with coming up with strategies, how to respond to things, and what's the best course to take. Did anyone else have comments?
I thought it was important that the question, I don't know, I guess like I said, I thought it was important. I felt like the question kind of shifted a bit, but first I thought it was, first it was just, do you make a report But then it kind of went into like racism or whatever, and I think, you know, make those distinctions in any conversation. Like, I mean, just jumping from one thing to another is not good. You know, if we're talking about racism on the job, that's one thing. We have you know, I mean, we could talk about that and how we codify it like that. Millie Fuller says, don't do it, you know, boom, that's, you can accept that or not. But if you're talking about just, you know, like we were talking about abuses on the job where they're not following their own policies or whatnot, then that's another thing. So, you know, just making it clear, if you don't have a discussion about things, just to be clear what we're talking about, because the answers, I'm sure, would be, you know, would be different.
Oh, one last thing that I want to share about filing a report, and I learned this the hard way. I found out that a white female who was in the same position as I was in, had less experience than me, less education than me, was being paid like, I think it was something like maybe close to $10,000 more per year, because we were on salary. And you know, and this was a long string of things. And so I went to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and made a complaint of, you know, pay discrimination. And I learned that white females have minority status when it comes to the federal government. Doesn't matter that they're white, but that they're female. So that's minority status. So you can't, you know, claim discrimination when it relates to another classified victim, I guess. So they got that victim status. I tell you, man, that's like, wow. So, you know, if you're thinking about complaining about a white female making more money than you, don't go to the federal government.
I like that though. They have minority status. That's heavy. Wow. It is. I don't know. It's deep. I don't know exactly what to say about it. I think it's important to understand that. That's some game right there. You just said something important. I think not so much not go to the federal government, but just the fact that they are more not, you know, they're more minority than you. They're not the seniority, you know, whatever Dr. Wilson said. The minority was seniority. Is like, nah. The white female has got the seniority as a minority, so you better reframe your words. Don't be talking about the discrimination. If that's the reason why you complain about the money, that ain't the one. Say she's incompetent or something, you know what I'm saying?
With less experience, like just qualify. I think that's another one on words too. If it's, wait a minute now, is this correct treatment? We're looking at qualifications. Like I think Mr. Fuller said too, a lot of times you can address these problems without using the word racism. That's a big recommendation that he's given out before too. And just saying that we're just talking about justice and making sure that the correct thing is done at all times, at all places, making sure nobody is being mistreated. And who is going to stand up and say, "Oh no, I'm not for justice. I'm not for doing the crime"? I mean, who's going to stand up and say that in a job? And if they do, you just want to make a note of that. Write that down, that such and such said they do not support justice. They do not support correct treatment.
I just wish I had the information back then. So, I mean, it just would have saved me a lot of stress and incorrect behavior on my part. But I got to go. Thanks for helping me, you know, be less confused. Bye.
Mr. Scotty Reed, founder, Black Talk Radio Network, right here. Tune in. Show program tomorrow, racial showcasing. Tune into that live as well. I think we have about 4 minutes. 4 minutes left. Anybody have anything they want to get in?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would just like to know, like, when the next program and, like, what's upcoming.
Should be tomorrow. Tomorrow, I guess, depending on where you are, early afternoon or in the morning. We should have a racist suspect. She's not on the suspect list. She's doing the tragic arrangement. White woman, maximum racist aggression. Her name is Jillian Shute. She should be joining us from South Africa. Should be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Pacific. She should be with us. She is a filmmaker. She's married to a black male. They have one offspring, to my knowledge, maybe more. Their films are about racism, white supremacy in South Africa. She should be here tomorrow. And Dr. Shahrazad Ali should be here later in the week. She's been on CNN quite a bit. They've been doing a lot of shadow fighting, getting Larry Elder and other black people, victims of racism, to come on and argue and fuss with her, and then the white people sit back and giggle about it. But she should be here, whatever the 31st is, if that's Wednesday or Thursday. I guess it's Wednesday. This Wednesday evening, she should be back. Second visit with us.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Was it 909 or somebody? I thought I heard one other person.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Scotty Reed said he wished he had the knowledge, at each particular time or whatever, and that's why talking about what goes on in the workplace is important. To give that knowledge to new workers and stuff like that, or whatever, going into the workplace, and after all that searching and resumes turned in and interviews and stuff like that, they get on the job, start talking about racism. That's like, that just can't happen, man. Like, dang, what do you do? Wow. But it happens, man. So, talking about it more is definitely important. And it's not I'm not trying to foster being lazy or anything like that, but I know that if you just talk about it, just tell what happened without, that does a lot. I noticed that just talking about it, people have the exact same experience a lot of times, so that's it. It doesn't have to be like no script that you have to learn to talk about. Just tell what happened with the white person at your job or whatever. Yeah. I wonder if that's something that, I don't really know, but I know that I seen my parents or whatever talk about. They would. I didn't understand it. I thought it was kind of strange, but just talk about. I didn't understand how my pops knew what my mom was talking about. Like, you don't work with her. Like, how are you guys having a conversation? She's telling you about this person, that person, and it was a conversation. So yeah, they would talk about workplace things all the time, and it wouldn't be like boring conversation or whatever. It would be engaging and stuff. Like, it was all the social things. So I just wonder if people still do that. I don't know, or they ever did it. I don't even know if they did it when I was coming up being as a child. So I just don't know. I just think it's important, though. Also, I think it's important what 1804 said, like that little insight, and wanted to bring out that it's a war, and they're using homosexuals as a strategy for this war. So something like that, important type of information needs to be told to everybody. Like, this is the perspective, this is the concept. We can talk about it. See if it makes any sense or not. But this is the concept we're working with. Like, this is a straight war tactic. This is what is it's aimed at the dark nation. So-called nations, dark people. This is what I think is an important aspect of it. You wanted to talk about it or not? Like, if you want to bring up homosexuality, like, if you just go straight to it's war. This is how I see it. Yeah, man. Like, instead of it being the last thing to come up, maybe the first thing to come up, but people can make that decision. But I think that was an important point, and I think it needs to be brought out as an important point.
When they on your job, it's like double duty. When they on the when they on the plantation with you, that's a whole nother ball game. Because it's like it gets layers to it. You got to be like codified in layers.
I agree. I totally agree. Since you brought that up together, I would say that's another one. I think it was last year. She said she was on her job and a white guy. She's in the entertainment industry, just for context. She was on her job and she said it was a white guy. I think they were in costumes or something, and he disappeared for a second and came back, and he had a dress on. And she said she was just stunned, like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And he asked her how he looked or something of that nature, and she was saying she wasn't sure how to respond. I would say you should put. I think you all had said don't talk about religion, politics, racism. I would say don't talk about gay rights either, because I think that would be another one that's going to on a smaller scale. What 1804 mentioned, how that's going to be the new tactic, like, oh, you're homophobic. That's we got to go in for human rights. Can't have you around here mistreating so-called gay people. On a smaller scale, I could see that happening on the jobs like wildfire. If you are a black person and you're on a job and somehow, some way, gay marriage comes up or gay rights or whatever on that subject matter, I would have very little to say. You do not want to get, because I mean, they are banging up black people left and right. You do not want to be branded the angry black homophobe on the job, and I suspect that they could be using that as a means to get you booted out of your job, because we just can't have homophobic people in the work environment. It's hostile. You know, Bob over here is gay, and he just doesn't feel comfortable if you're going to be here with those type of views. And so I mean, I have nothing to say on that. If it comes up, I'm just sitting quietly. If it comes to you on gay marriage, it's interesting. I haven't really read as much material on this. Can you tell me more about it? I know this is big news, but I'm a little bit behind on the news and what have you. I know it passed in the state. Can you tell me more about it? Flipped it back to a question. Now you can be quiet and just let them talk and talk. Oh, wow, okay, I'll have to check. Do you have some literature? Do you have some books or something that I should check out? I need to be more informed about this. I feel like this is something I need to pay attention to. Another one where you haven't even given a position on it.
And Gus, you know where I am at, so that topic is just off limits. And I'm in San Francisco, so there's people you would not think that are gay. I mean, you know, not flamboyantly looking gay, that are gay. I learned that like within 2 days when I was here talking to people, and they're referring to their partner that turns out to be same sex. So yeah, I totally agree with you. In my location, that's not a conversation that I can have, because I will easily be labeled a homophobe and be out of a job. So
I have a quick question. I know we're probably over time by now. Why are white and black relationships considered tragic relationships? Because they produce more black people.
I'll kick that one. This is another reason where I say again, if we had the same enthusiasm, and there's nothing incorrect about your question, I'm going to let one of the callers answer it, or several people have a view. There's nothing incorrect about it. It's just what I said before. That topic, number 8, sex, that's going to come up. That's been my experience. It's unavoidable. You can wait. That train is never late. You will have plenty of opportunities to talk about sexual intercourse within the context of racism, white supremacy. I see a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for that topic. Just sex in general. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to do. I understand all that. But on the plantation, we have lots of issues that are not discussed at all, and are certainly not discussed with the same level of enthusiasm and zeal that we have for that area. I think we would make major improvements when it's time to talk about the workplace, because I mean, they have made songs, no romance without finance, bragged about that. You don't have no job, don't even be talking to me. We talk about that all the time. If that's true, maybe we should spend at least equal amounts of time on workplace racism and the sex aspect and all the various problems and things that go along with that. That's just continued motivation to make sure that we, are focusing on all the areas of people activity and codification, especially workplace. Very important and very neglected, in my opinion. Did any other listeners want to respond to that question about why sexual tragic arrangements, why that term is used when a white person, black person are engaged in sexual intercourse, produce offspring?
I don't think so.
Wow. Wants to take us. That is amazing. Wow.
I mean,
what was the question again? I was a little busy. What was the question again?
You want to give it to her one more time, sir?
I'm trying to figure out why you refer to black and white relationships as tragic relationships when they produce more black people. Isn't that a plus? You shut down the white gene pool and increase the black gene pool, so why is that a bad thing?
Well, from what I have gathered, and what I've learned from tuning into the context of white supremacy, it kind of, I would say it kind of confuses the non-white victim of racism, and it kind of makes them kind of sympathize more with the racist or the suspected racist. And if they were any type of help in counter racism, once they become involved in a tragic relationship, it kind of like duct tapes. You know what I'm saying? If they was productive in it, they're probably less productive once they start involving themselves in those type of tragic relationships. One key example I can give, I don't have much knowledge on the topic myself, but I have heard different speakers speak about it, like Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. John Henry Clark said one of the worst things that happened in the Haitian Revolution was that the mixed race Haitians sold out the full-blooded Africans because they identified more with the French than they did with the Africans themselves. So just because you have a person who is mixed race, or would you say black because they had a black parent or whatever like that, and a white parent, in some cases, in a lot of cases, they kind of identify more with the white parent than the black parent themselves. That's just my 2 cents on it, though.
You realize you're speaking of President Obama, right?
Say that again?
You do realize that you're speaking of President Obama, right? Does he relate more to his white parents or his black parents?
I actually had President Obama in mind when I was speaking too, but I just didn't bring up his name. But yeah, I realized that as well.
He identifies as black, and he looks like a black man.
Can I ask the question?
I think.
Go ahead.
I think he identifies with black when it suits him. But in other cases,
he cannot pass for a white man.
What'd you say?
He cannot pass for a white man.
I'm not confused about that either. But I think he identifies with black when it suits him. But when it comes to the issue of, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for, when they had to pay folks for reparations, when it comes to reparations, he does not, he is against that. A lot of things, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
when he says he's the president.
He's a politician at the end of the day. He's a politician. He plays politics. Everyone does.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was just saying that I think he identifies with black when it suits him. He was raised by whites, so regardless of the fact, like I said, he's a non-white person. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think he looks through the lenses of a person who was raised by people.
Let me put this to you for a second, okay?
Hang on one second. Everybody, hang on one second. This term, tragic arrangement, is in the Word Guide by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., so I will read you what he said. But I do want to ask a question for the caller who asked this. Have you ever been engaged in a sexual relationship with a white person?
I've been in a sexual relationship with every female on the planet.
Okay, well, I would like a specific answer to my question. So have you ever been in a sexual relationship?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you're a non-white person?
No, I'm not.
You're a white person?
Okay, you just threw me for a loop with that non-white person. I'm a black man.
Okay, cool. Okay.
I don't use the term non-white person. That's why.
No problem. You're a black male. You have had sexual intercourse with a white person.
Okay, Can I ask you this though?
Hang on one second. I want to read you the definition, and I do even want to tell listeners I am a little bit peeved that this has taken over because we were talking about the workplace. But this is important, so no problem. But I just feel like, man, the workplace is more important than. At any rate, tragic arrangement. It is in the word guide. The term. Use this term to apply to all interactions between white people and the non-white people, that would include black people, of the known universe during the existence of the system of white supremacy, racism. Apply this term also to all of the non-constructive efforts. Apply this term also to all of the non-constructive effects that the system of white supremacy, racism, has on non-white persons in regards to their interactions with, against each other. Notes: during the existence of white supremacy, racism, the interactions between the white people and the non-white people of the known universe can best be described as tacky, trashy, and or terroristic. These interactions can be called the 3 T's, which when combined is the tragic arrangement. According to compensatory counter-racist logic, this tragic arrangement should be replaced with the quality relationship. The quality relationship should be regarded as the combination of all thought, speech, and action regarding white people and non-white people that actually results in replacing the system of white supremacy, racism, with the system of justice, balance between people. This is in the Word Guide from Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the term tragic arrangement. We've talked about this concept a lot on the program. Interracial con game, I mean, there are tons of programs where we've talked about this, why sexual intercourse between white people and black people, any non-white person, is incorrect. And in my view, one of the worst things that could happen to a non-white person. We also have talked specifically with regards to President Obama. We did a book club on Dreams from My Father, where we pointed out many examples in the book of him identifying with white people, even excusing the racist behavior of his white mother, his white grandmother, his white grandfather. All throughout the book, there are a litany of examples where they will do, and I'm talking about his mom, grandfather, they will do something racist, say something racist. Even the popular anecdote where his grandmother comes home and says she was afraid of this black male, and his grandfather seemed to recognize her behavior as racist and was ashamed to even have to tell him this. And he immediately excuses it and says, oh, well, she had a right, she's small. And in fact, her grandfather, his grandmother's husband, refused to give her a ride and said, he didn't say it as bluntly as I am. It's like, you're just being racist, and no, I'm not going to give you a ride. Your whole fear of black people is irrational and racist, and I'm not going to cower to it. President Obama steps in and says, I'll do it. She's afraid. My gosh, that's my grandmother. That right there. And there are lots of these examples. So to the caller, I would encourage, if you are interested, if you really want to know why this term is used and why this is incorrect, you can visit the archives to hear the book study session on President Obama specifically, Dreams from My Father, or you can pick out any number of programs where we've talked about this in depth. Pam and I have done several programs. Her book, The Interracial Con Game, you can check that book out. We've done several programs on that book and talking about the many different illustrations. Just to your point about it allegedly shortening or shrinking the white gene pool, black people and white people have been having sexual intercourse for centuries. If this was going to help end racism, we wouldn't be on the call right now. The problem would have been solved. This has been happening for a long, long time, and there's no evidence to show that this helps to end racism. In fact,
do you really think if
hang on one second. If anything, the overwhelming evidence shows that this is horrific and has had horrible consequences for non-white people, black people, over and over and over.
Producing that first black president.
Under the system of racism, white supremacy. Unfortunately, we are 20 minutes over. I do not have the interest in continuing on this particular topic just because we've talked about it over and over and over again. If you're really interested, you can hit the archives. I can give you specific programs to listen to because we talked about this in detail. You can listen and think and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't,
you do realize that if 5 million black people were to sleep with a white person, then they will double their numbers to 10 million.
Oh man. Right now, I don't have the patience to entertain that thinking pattern. Right now, that's why I'm saying just visit the archives. We've talked about this in detail. We've talked about every point that you're bringing up, even within the context specifically of President Obama. We've talked about all this. If you want to exchange email, I can give you specific programs where we lay out all that in detail. If you want to check it out, if not, that's fine too. But we've done 20 minutes, and this is as much time as I'm willing to invest on this right now. I can give you my email. It's untiljustice@gmail.com. Please email me. I'll get those to you right now. I'll do it within the next hour. I'll pick out 2 or 3 programs. I'll make sure I include one about President Obama because we talked about that and him having a white mom and how that, in my view, is terrible. And you can see the impact it has on how he thinks about genetic annihilation. I keep saying I'm not touching this. You can include that in the email, and I'll make sure I get programs.
I'm just saying, how does the fear of genetic annihilation figure into this?
As I said, I'm unwilling to continue talking about this right now. We're 20 minutes over the end of the program. I can give you the information if you want. I just given you my email. It's untiljustice@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I'll send you the programs. If it doesn't make sense, you can let me know. But we're done talking about that for this program. Workplace. I can ring my cowbell. Again, sex thing. This right here, I would say. Another illustration of why it is horrible. One of the worst things that could possibly happen to end up in bed with a white person. Terrible. We were having a 40-minute discussion.
You might produce a black child.
I'm going to mute your line, sir, because you're interrupting me. And I just said, I'm kind of done with this. I'm trying to wrap up the program. Shoot me an email. I'll give you the information if you're interested in learning. Anyone else out who's interested, shoot me an email. I'll get you the information. You can visit Pam's site, racismws.com, Interracial Con Game, whole book on this subject matter where she hits all of those points. Boom, boom, boom. Racists have done a lot to confuse us in our thinking about this and convincing many of us to think that this will somehow end racism. I would say, man, oh man, racists, they have done a phenomenal job. At any rate, in fact, you should listen to the program tomorrow because this is going to be talked about in about, 15 hours. We'll have a racist, she's not a suspect. We will have a white woman who I think has committed a maximum act of racist aggression. She is a white person in South Africa. She's married to a black person. They've had a child. We'll see.
So your show tomorrow is going to be about sleeping with white people and producing black babies?
I'll say again, our program tomorrow, we're going to have a white person in South Africa. She is married to a black person, and they have produced a child. So we'll have a global perspective. Folks can tune in. Is this moving us towards ending racism, white supremacy? And if so, how? Tune in tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. Jillian Shute, that's her name. Folks can check the website, Google her, what have you, see what pops up. You'll see some photographs. She's got her multiracial family, quote unquote, where you can check them out and see the films that they're doing and what have you, and if they're doing constructive work in South Africa. Should be on tomorrow live. We will wrap things up. I hope it has been constructive. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. Anybody want to do the prayer to wrap things up? Right on. It has been time. Replace the system of white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Do not ever, for any reason, sleep on or with white people. In my view, sometimes they are at They're deadliest in the bedroom. Interracial con game, folks. Interracial con game. Cal signing out. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Even my conditioning has been conditioned.